that Church Scientology is so afraid of.
This is SPTV.
Well, hello guys. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. Hope that you are all having a wonderful, productive Monday, as productive and wonderful as ours has been so far. First of all, thank you so much for all your messages and all your questions from our video that we did in the middle of the night, as we had to react and respond to the literal news of the corruption that, again, you guys, it's like, if the LAPD feels so comfortable being so corrupt right in front of everyone's eyes, then we really do have to wonder what in the literal hell is actually going on. Like, how do they not have any brain cells, or how do they not self-protect? Because be advised, LAPD, you are going to be eaten alive. That is what in the hell it's called, being eaten alive by everyone that is watching what in the hell y'all are doing. By everyone who is witnessing the fraternizing, inappropriate relationship y'all have really taken it upon yourselves to really develop with these hotels. And apparently all the times that the LAPD shows up at these hotels, you guys, for every threat and for every event that they do and whatever type of relationship they're holding with these people, they always fail to see what's wrong with the picture, right? And in what world, LAPD, are you all purporting to be in the business of investigating if y'all cannot even pull a literal string out of a rag doll? Your investigative skills could not be any more abysmal. Nowhere to be found. So why are y'all's investigative skills so missing in action? Because that's the string to pull, right, guys? That's what doesn't make sense. Last time we checked, the LAPD, we are paying y'all to enforce the law. Scientology is paying you nothing to enforce the law. Or are they paying you on the side to not enforce the law? Because all of those buildings don't generate a shred of dollar for y'all to be paying yourselves. But given that you are on the public record all over the place, showing up so quickly, you know, and the pitch is always from them, you guys. It's like, we really want to make sure everyone is exercising their First Amendment right, and really answer that question already, LAPD. Why did y'all go to the Celebrity Center protest that we had with e-predators, you know, just a couple months ago, where y'all also arrested and put someone in handcuffs? Our security, you guys, in that protest was handcuffed. Because yes, Scientology is so pressed. I mean, imagine that these people literally trafficked us as kids, literally locked up our passports, literally send us to a disgusting gulag prison camp from hell as underage kids. And imagine that we have no shred of intention to damage a shred of building. We're not pressed like that, Scientology. We're not pressed like that, OSA. No one wants to touch you. Y'all disgust us. You're disgusting. We are demanding the LAPD deals with y'all, not us. We don't want to touch you with a 10-foot pole, because y'all are so disgusting and pathetic. And that's why we're paying with taxpayer money the LAPD to go do the job that needs to be done, to follow due process, to follow due diligence, to go get more receipts for themselves, whatever in the hell they need to do is for the LAPD to do. So continue putting your false reports on the record, because that is actually very, very helpful what you're doing, OSA. Very helpful. You have no idea how helpful that fake arrest is turning out to be, coming to find out. You know, because we're having all manner of BTS conversations. All manner of BTS conversations. And the fact that y'all continue to put on full display that you're nothing but a band of crooked, deranged proteges following the words of a convicted, indicted felon, well, that is not going to end up well for y'all. Y'all's defenses couldn't be more pathetic or weak. So your day in court will be coming very, very soon. And it's not just going to be David Miscavige, OSA. It's not just going to be him. Trust me, believe you us. It's your entire network of co-conspirators involved in a wide-ranging criminal racketeering scheme where all of our passports were locked in y'all's safe as minors. Starting with that little administrative detail that took place right before all the other essay that I had to survive as a child locked up in Debbie Cook's hotel. So the fact that my passport was not in my possession, the fact that all of these executives were telling me, you cannot go anywhere, Serge. You cannot leave the hotel, Serge. Make sure you're here at roll call. Make sure you're accounted for. Make sure you're not missing. Make sure even if you're here 1 minute late, we're going to throw you in a pool to punish you and humiliate you, because really we need you here roll call style, you guys. Like, you couldn't be there 1 minute late because these traffickers that were so pressed to make money, these traffickers that were giving us quotas, Debbie Cook, of $100,000 to make you in a week so you could impress David. So by all means, all Scientology executives, explain to the LAPD why you have, including but not limited to, minors being given quotas of $100,000 a week to make for your sham scam 501c from literal hell. Because that would be very great to start understanding and connecting that dot for the LAPD, since they couldn't be more clueless or pathetic if they tried. They couldn't be more compromised. They couldn't have a shred of shame to show all over the public record how there's no justice, there's no laws, nothing gets enforced. They couldn't be more comfortable showing up, fraternizing. Hi, security guard. Oh, hi, I've known you for 7 years. Aren't we really good buddies? Your buddy security guards don't show you pathetic LAPD officers that are so buddy with them what they do to kids behind closed doors. So next time you have a buddy conversation with them, ask them the question, is it true that y'all do an audit on underage kids? Is it true that you have underage kids, including but not limited to asking adults if they've ever committed a felony for which they have never been arrested? Ask the security guards, ask them if on the A to J check, if that question can be found. And then ask them, who does the A to J check? Just everybody? Great. And isn't the A to J check called I'm not auditing you? Therefore, even your sham misrepresentation about how everything couldn't be more religious, how everything couldn't be more kumbaya, being locked up against your will inside one of your disgusting hotels, is a not auditing action, you guys. So clarification. I know this is confusing and into the weeds, but you know what? If y'all, the advocates that are tuning in to find out what in the hell is going on in those hotels, don't get told what in the hell this is that they do in these hotels, then there is no leg for any of us to stand on. And us, the literal kids that were stuck in these hotels doing these disgusting hardcore role plays at the benefit, pleasure of adults that did take it upon themselves to sign a consent, that did take it upon themselves to pay all manner of money. Because you know what? A child is just an adult in a small body. Their body doesn't count. So there's two ways that you do audits in Scientology, you guys. One is called an audit, and one is called I'm not auditing you. Okay? So we have audit that is supposed to be spiritual and whatever, everything you say could never be used against you, even if you confess to and self-admit to self-admitted Class A felonies in every last shred of detail. So that's a Scientology audit. So here you can confess, oh yes, I really did commit this Class A felony for myself. When was it? Where was it? Is that all of that felony? What else is there to that felony? What did you do right before that felony? What did you do right after that felony? How did you justify that felony? Who almost found out about that felony? Any other co-conspirators that could have almost found out about it? Anyone else that almost could have found out about it? So they really want to find out who almost found out about it. They want to find out who could have possibly been a witness and could have been implicated in the self-admitted felony that they're being allowed to blab about to a minor in a hotel room. Okay, LAPD? But the problem with the A to J interview is that it's a not auditing you situationship. So if you're still very confused, don't be confused. This one, they let you tell and confess and admit and pay to float. This one, like the A to J check interview, it's not an auditing session. It's not there for you to get case gain is what they pitch. Okay, you guys. So on this one, you're supposed to get a lot of case gain because, you know, like Danny Masterson did really tell them, oh yeah, when did you do it? How did you do it? How many times did you do it? The literal things we all know he's convicted for was an audit like this. So no consequences, needle floats, everyone's great, everyone's having a great time. They're all writing success stories, you guys, like literally. My God, the technology couldn't have been more wonderful. My God, I floated my needle after admitted a Class A felony. I really would love to thank L. Ron Hubbard. I really would like to thank David Miscavige. Without David Miscavige, we wouldn't have this technology that we really do all use inside of these hotels to launder our felonies and get a tax write-off every time we do so. So I guess the LAPD is very pressed to outsource criminal investigations to including but not limited to minors such as myself that were stuck in there doing the work of the LAPD. But mind you, we had no shred of certificate to be applying the law, but we were definitely asking the questions to be incriminating people. So yeah, LAPD, you should be really thanking us that all the self-admitted felons, not in LA, because I was never in LA, but definitely in Florida for the Clearwater Police. That again, you guys, it's like Clearwater Police, LAPD, they might as well be the same exact outfit. There's no difference between the Clearwater Police and there is no difference between the LA Police because L. Ron Hubbard's proteges ran the same exact program on the Clearwater Police to compromise them, to kneecap them, to have them blackmailed AF so they couldn't be more paralyzed and unwilling to enforce a shred of law. That is how these people get away with it. For all of you that are asking, oh, how could it be? How could it possibly be? They have been kneecapped. The Office of Special Affairs has been working on this for decades. First, under the close supervision and direction and at the behest of none other than the founder of this disgusting Office of Special Affairs, Mike Rinder. High school dropout Mike Rinder is the one that founded OSA, the one that recruited, the one that staffed his little office. Okay, you really come here. You really have what it takes. You listen to every criminal thing we tell you to do, and then you won't go and do it. And for decades, he stayed there, really molding his proteges, really teaching them the ways of how to be criminal, how to be unhinged, how to destroy people's lives, how to kidnap kids, how to get away with it all. And then he left, and then he left all his proteges behind, and he left his children behind. And he left all the children that he ensnared behind. So yeah, he's not running that office anymore, but his proteges are doing a great job at really following his lead still. Because it wasn't like these proteges were just sort of knowing no. His proteges were well-versed. His proteges were well-mentored. Here's the course. How to break into someone's house. Here you go. Here's a diagram on how to break in. How to break someone's lock. Here's a diagram. How to blackmail someone. Here it is. This is how you do it. So was that a religious experience, breaking the law? Because that's the only religion that apparently is being observed inside of these hotels and commercial buildings. They worship breaking the law, you guys. That's what in the hell it's called. We really do worship breaking the law because a convicted, indicted felon is the one that Marty Rathbun, Mike Rinder, and David Miscavige really pitched to the IRS as being a religious, American-born, bred God, even though the three amigos, those three that spend over a decade paying exorbitant retainers to so-called legal advisors that were supposed to be keeping their client in check, that were supposed to be advising their client on how to not break the MF law. So yeah, 1 decade that these guys pitched their disgusting, despicable, convicted, indicted felon out of his mind, died in a literal trailer, complete trailer trash L. Ron Hubbard. That we got all manner of infantilized adults really pitching this as a very religious thing, including the mayor of the city, you guys, who, yeah, I know some of you went, no, sir, she really did say she changed. She really did want to do something different. She did take it upon herself to speak to Mike Rinder. Not great, you guys. I wonder what you told her, Mike Rinder. I wonder what you told her. I wonder if you told her that you were all about locking up passports of kids in safes. Wonder if that was one of your little, oh yeah, Karen Bass, we really were locking up all the children's passports, so we really could make sure that they didn't run away. And we did kneecap the LAPD, so when they did run away, they just brought it back to us. So there was no real reports ever made of runaways trying to get out of the hotel because they just bring it, oh, look who we found here at the beach. This 15-year-old that doesn't want to be in the hotel, but he is 15 and someone reported him at Clearwater Beach. Hey, there's a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old walking around here by themselves and it's 3 a.m. There goes the Clearwater police. Whew, whew. Oh, look here. Let's bring you back to Debbie Cook. Here you go, Debbie Cook. Here you go. We are the protectors of your sham, is what these police departments are just completely happy to implicate themselves in. Isn't that great, you guys? They just feel great. Let's just implicate ourselves. Why not? Let's just do the dirty work for these people. What is in it for you, LAPD? What is in it for y'all? It's not like you're getting your paycheck from not enforcing the laws. Is you're getting the paycheck from the citizens that are paying for y'all to enforce the laws, that are entrusting you to protect and to serve. But apparently that little motto is only protecting and serving adults that are following the rhetoric to the letter from a convicted, indicted felon. Imagine being that stupid. Imagine being that idiot at the LAPD that decides, oh, you know what? I should really just hook up with these guys. I really can get a lot of perks. It's going to be great for my career. It's called, they don't give a shred of an F about y'all's careers at the LAPD. The OSA proteges, the security guards that you're also fraternizing with, that you're so comfortable with calling, don't give a shred of an F about y'all's reputation or y'all's careers. They spit in y'all's faces and you still idiotically think that they're your frenzy wensies that really, need to be protected. Because all of y'all at the LAPD should really start thinking, why are they so pressed? If they're these little goody two-shoes that are nothing but a 501c wanting to really save the world because, aren't they such cutie pies? But all of you at the LAPD couldn't be more glib, couldn't be more compromised, and couldn't be more the effect of being kneecapped first by Mike Rinder and now by all the proteges of his that are running his disgusting offices. Still full knowing. And if you don't know what in the hell we're talking about, look at the community tab and look at the Office of Special Affairs memos, where they literally said, oh yeah, blackmailing people, of course, is illegal. Breaking into people's homes, of course, is illegal. But if you worked for Mike Rinder inside of that office, it wasn't illegal. If you worked for Mike Rinder in one of those offices, like Jesse Prince already told us in that statement, that they were all criminals, you guys. The top tier of these hotels are full unindicted felons that don't give a shred of an F about the law. And we are now having the receipts to not just be like, oh, Serge, you're so hyperbolic. We saw it with our own two eyes. It's called 3 strikes. 2 fake BOMB threats and a fake fire. Oh yeah, they really want to come and burn something. So the ones that are being pathetically hyperbolic is the people that are getting called out, you guys. And just like rats, they couldn't be more pressed. They couldn't be more miswithholdy. That's what in the hell L1 Hubbard called it. Oh, when they're about to find your secret, you really do get pressed. You really do, start becoming a little crazy. Well, the investigators, because that's actually who they are, and we're talking to Streets yesterday, and he told us, yes, everyone is a journalist. All it takes is for you to have a phone. And you can go out to the streets and you are a literal journalist, right or wrong, LAPD. That's why on the literal headline, LAPD handcuffs journalist investigating Scientology. And Scientology loves sending people to investigate us, to harass us, to snoop, to check, to video record, but they don't like it being done to them. Do you see how that works, you guys? We all can do it to everyone else that we feel like it. We don't give a shred of an F. No one will hold us accountable. No one will hold us nothing. Like literally, go ahead. But then when it comes the other way around, oh my God, everybody wants to destroy. No, you're getting called out. You don't like getting called out? You don't like that this generation of investigators are sitting there and they don't give a shred of an F how hard you try to bore them because they are actually volunteering for a cause that they are starting to give a literal shred of an F about. Much more than whatever in the hell the LAPD that gets paid to investigate, that gets paid by the hour, you guys, by the hour. These people are making 6 figures of taxpayer dollars, except those taxpayer dollars are going to literally handcuff our security protesting outside of Celebrity Center, handcuff a literal investigator that is walking the streets and literally recording himself. Everything he's talking is on the record. Everything he's watching is on the literal MF record. So by all means, Scientology OSA that really is putting files. Oh, let's put a file on Chris. Let's put a file on Jessica. Let's put a file on Serge. Your smear files couldn't be more pathetic and invented, as if you weren't trying to dead agent us. What your little L. Ron Hubbard told you, oh yeah, dead agent people by just pulling shit out of your ass and inventing stuff and, you know, really put them in compromising situations. Because that's what we know from Chris, that there were files made with people's names, that they had everything, their social media, everything, because that is what OSA's doing, you guys. OSA's like, oh, let's really investigate the investigators because because we have nothing to hide in these hotels, because we are locking kids against their will. And we would be so upset if we lost that chance to continue doing that, to continue acting with impunity, with no one giving a shred of an F. That's why you see these people being so pressed. That's the only thing they're pressed about, you guys. Their precious right to act unhinged like complete degenerates, self-entitled, all because a convicted felon told them that it would be a great idea for them to be just like me, says L. Ron Hubbard. Oh yeah, just be like me. What would LRH do? What would L. Ron Hubbard say? What would L. Ron Hubbard do? What would L. Ron Hubbard say? Well, y'all can go start telling the jury. Y'all can go start talking to the literal grand juries that should be getting convened if the LAPD had any shred of skin in the game to really want to support themselves, to really want to protect their reputation, to really not want to come off as the whitewashers and enablers of child predators, LAPD. How's that going to be a stain on y'all's history? You've stood behind these buildings. You've stood grabbing baskets, grabbing checks, grabbing things that whoever is giving you that has that to give you because there's a minor inside of those hotels doing back-breaking work. Because there's minors in the hotel being told that it is up to them to do these role plays, hardcore scene role plays with these disgusting adults that, couldn't be more ridiculous pitching that they really want to be a religious thing, as they literally prop up all these minors being there. And as we already know from Epstein's situationship, they are all witnesses, you guys. So all the people that want to cradle and canoodle adults that are all about witnessing disgusting abuse of kids that are nowhere in the public record repudiating or realizing, gee, maybe that was a little unhinged. Maybe we took it too far. Maybe that was just too much. Maybe I just had my own kids and I realized, damn, at 9 years old, I was making kids do what? But yeah, from the literal public record, you guys, you can hear none of that. Because the whistle blowing has all been about blowing somebody, but not about coming clean, not about going to the LAPD and really saying, I really do need to give you some testimony. I really do need to be immunized. I really do need to figure out how y'all can forgive me for having locked up all the passports of all those minors for how many decades And yeah, today I would like to, say that it was a misstep in my part, but immunize me because I don't want to go to jail, but give me a deal, cut it up, and I'll just at least tell the truth so that more kids are not getting implicated, more kids are not getting roped in, because that's what you are seeing. We are very, very pressed about. See, LAPD? We have video evidence and receipts and people that are talking to us in the literal street. Yesterday, we talked to a 16-year-old teen mom that was being recruited at the Children's Hospital for crying out MF loud. But yeah, by all means, do nothing. By all means, keep doing y'all's shady shit. Well, good luck laundering y'all's image, because soon enough, you and those hotels would not be able to put a lot of distance between y'all. And you're going to definitely rue the day when y'all are caught with your literal pants down. As if we haven't literally already caught you like that. Not because we're looking to catch you. Y'all are not the focus of our investigation. We're investigating what's going on in their centers today. We are allowed to do that. And y'all are all acting very pressed that we are doing it. And y'all are really trying to demonize us as if those kids want to do anything other than what in the hell they are actually doing, showing the world what is going on, because they have smelled a rat. And that is called having good investigative instincts. That is called having good leadership, setting a good example, not because you give an F about being famous or being relevant. They don't give an F about that. They're literally going to MacArthur Park, walking through all the trash, where now Scientology is sending the so-called volunteers to, well, you can't recruit here anymore because we wouldn't want you to be exposed to a shred of scrutiny, because our sham will fall apart real quick once your slaves start realizing who the hell they actually are endorsing and consenting to be. If you're 21 and up and you're signing all the paperwork and you're really all about what in the hell's going on in those hotels, you are getting implicated in this wide-ranging criminal racketeering scheme. And that goes from literal, and we still have our little paper here, you guys. It's a pyramid scheme. Doesn't matter if you're an RTC, doesn't matter if you're WDC, doesn't matter if you're OSA, doesn't matter if you're senior HCO, it doesn't matter if you're FSO, it doesn't matter if you are an organization class 5, it doesn't matter if you're a mission. If you are role-playing the convicted, indicted felon, writing rhetoric for yourselves, and you're working in a conspiracy with others to go ahead and do that, what in the hell is written in there, go double check with real smart criminal attorneys. Go double check real quick. All of you Scientologists that just cannot get enough of it, go check. Would holding someone against their will, aka never let a PC end his session on his own determinism, could that implicate me in a felony charge by any chance? And what if I did that for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of hours? What kind of racketeering charge could that land me with? By all means, Scientologists, self-preserve, y'all. Self-preserve. Go get advice from a real attorney. Not from attorneys that don't give a shred of an F other than cashing checks for themselves. So that's what we really want to talk about in terms of that situationship, you guys. But as I told you, that in order to really get into the weeds, we're going to have to get into the weeds. And that brings us to this video that I was going to push back because we have a ton of other receipts. I literally don't even know where to start with all the information that we have right now, you guys. So I'm trying to organize my thoughts and prioritize. And I thought, you know what? We need to start looking at people that know what in the hell they're talking about. So we at least have like, okay, well, you know, you guys always go like, you know how I go hardcore on the press that has done nothing, that had literally been the whitewashers and the enablers of systemic institutional abuse happening in these hotels, that are literally on the public record grifting away as they peddle BS stories that have nothing to do with anything other than their own delusions and their own willingness to grift ad nauseum. Because Scientology, all it has to do is hold its little stable of celebrities, and all of a sudden, all the magazines want to whitewash everything, just like it happened in Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein's case. So we do have precedent. We do have receipts on the public record that with anyone with any two brain cells in their head could start connecting a shred of dot. Because that's how the law is supposed to work, right? Precedent. Oh, so if these people got this situationship and these people have to literally be held accountable because they did break a law, never mind that we have all over the public record that even Ghislaine and Jeffrey were being aided and abetted by the government, you guys. So there is a journalist by the name of Nick Bryant, who has dug into the weeds. So at least we found an example of a journalist that will get into the weeds of shit, even when everyone else around him was squirming and was trying to be like, oh no, just put it down. So this is a very, very interesting conversation that I want you guys all to check out with me. And this is what we really wanted to say. In conjunction with the deep appreciation for Nick Bryant's tireless efforts in exposing the intricate web of child trafficking networks, we are committed to closely analyzing the information that he has shared. As survivors of child trafficking ourselves, we recognize the importance of juxtaposing his findings with our personal experiences. Experiences that echo the haunting reality of being trafficked against our will as minors, with our passports held hostage inside of Scientology hotels. Nick Bryant's revelations shed light on the brazen audacity of these criminal networks operating with impunity and exploiting innocent lives in plain sight. His dedication to unraveling these dark secrets aligns with our mission to bring forth the harrowing truth of our own victimization and expose the mechanisms that allow such networks to not only flourish, but also to prosper. During our live session, we are going to delve into a comprehensive analysis of Bryant's findings in an interview conducted by This Is Ironclad. We're drawing parallels with our own encounters with trafficking. By doing so, we aim to underscore the urgent need for society to comprehend the depth of these crooked networks and acknowledge how they continue to operate unchecked. It is imperative to recognize that trafficking is not an isolated issue, but a systemic problem that thrives on silence and complicity, and that manipulation of legal and bureaucratic systems. Our personal narratives intertwined with Bryant's revelations serve as a stark reminder that these networks operate in plain sight, shielded by a culture of disbelief, ignorance, and active collusion. Bryant, a stalwart in the fight against child exploitation, has demonstrated unwavering dedication to exposing the dark underbelly of child trafficking, particularly his pivotal role in unveiling the heinous crimes of Jeffrey Epstein, Maxwell, and their associates. Bryant's extensive body of work, including his acclaimed book, The Franklin Scandal, A Story of Power Brokers, Child Abuse, and Betrayal, has illuminated the insidious nature of child exploitation perpetrated by individuals in positions of power. His forthcoming book, The Truth About Watergate, A tale of extraordinary lies and liars, further underscores his commitment to unraveling the webs of deceit that shroud these criminal enterprises. As an investigative journalist, Bryant has delved into the darkest corners of society, publishing in prestigious journals and outlets. Nick Bryant's organization's Epstein Justice stands as a beacon of hope for survivors seeking justice and accountability for the atrocities committed against them. We commend his relentless pursuit of truth and commend his role as a driving force in exposing the interconnected networks that facilitate the exploitation and trafficking of innocent children. In solidarity with Nick Bryant's mission, we are resolute in our commitment to amplifying the voice of survivors, dismantling trafficking networks, and advocating for a world where the innocence of children is protected and justice actually prevails. Together we stand against the darkness, working towards a future where every child can flourish without fear, exploitation, or betrayal. As we embark on this journey of analysis and reflection, we invite our audience to join us in confronting the uncomfortable truths that permeate our society. Together we strive for a world where survivors are heard, traffickers are held accountable, and the veil of secrecy surrounding these networks is lifted for good. So let's watch this together, guys, and shout out to our moderators that did put in the chat. If you guys want to ask a question, just please put it all caps. So at the end of this, I would love to have some interaction with y'all. If you have questions, if you have feedback, the only way to reconcile the truth, you guys, is by asking smart questions and getting answers that make a shred of sense. If the answer doesn't make sense, then find out why that answer is making no shred of sense. And together, we are literally going to tear apart all the status quo, all these power brokers that have been doing all manner of disgusting stuff for themselves. They are getting called out. They will have nowhere to hide, literally. So let's listen to Nick Bryant.
With a blackmail photographer when I was researching the Franklin scandal. And I can prove that he was a blackmail photographer. I have police reports on him. I said, how does this work? Because I was still investigating and I was still trying to get my mind around it. And he said, it's like you're on a yacht. And it's a beautiful yacht. And it's a beautiful day. And you can have anything on this yacht that you want. But if you decide to get off the yacht, the people on the yacht are going to make sure that you drown. And our politicians are on the yacht. And there's zero incentive for them to come out and say that they're being blackmailed.
See, you guys? Blackmailed. So let's take this that just came up in the comments from Indigo Montoya. And Indigo goes, besides going to the FBI, writing a book, 3 seasons of The Aftermath, etc., what else should Mike Rinder do? Ask him if he's on a yacht, Indigo Montoya. Ask him if he is on a literal yacht for himself. Because Mike Rinder knows exactly what in the hell he needs to do. Mike Rinder was at the top of this pyramid scheme. So if you want to find out what else he needs to do, go ask him what else he needs to do. Since the hotels are operating with full impunity as we speak, since the hotels are still in the practice of locking up minors against their will. So in what world has any of that been advocated for? In what world? Where is that evidence? Where is the evidence that that has been advocated for? Where is the evidence that these kids should not be getting audits, should not be getting sec checks, should not be getting ethics because still the narrative is they're practicing a religion in there. They couldn't be more religious in there. David really hit us. David really beat us. The adults that did consent, the adults that were the slave masters. It's a slave master society living it up inside of those hotels. The slave masters love it. What in the hell they do? The security guards that called in a fake BOMB threat that have the LAPD on speed dial are getting off on their power trip to be able to do that and get away with it and know that the LAPD is going to do nothing to them. And in their twisted, sick head, they're like, oh, this is going to really intimidate and send everyone a real big message. And the power of blackmail, you guys, cannot be overstated enough. The only thing L. Ron Hubbard was teaching us as children was to data mine for blackmail. To literally data mine for blackmail. What felony have you committed for which you have not been arrested? Tell me. Tell me what it is. What did you think of right there? What was that thought? What could it be? Something about your taxes? Something about your sex life? Oh, what did you think of when I said sex life? That? What was that? What was that you thought of when I said sex life? What thought came to your mind exactly? Oh, your daughter? Oh, okay. So something you've done with your daughter? Any felony for which you have not been arrested regarding your daughter? That right there. What is that? Is there a felony there with you and your daughter? There. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? So by all means, anybody explain why that is being done? Anybody explain that wants to defend these executives that normalize this be done to all kids inside of these hotels with dolls? Because that's the questions that we're having for ourselves in the aftermath of being implicated in this wide-ranging criminal racketeering scheme from hell that everyone's playing dumb, that everyone's wanting to give themselves the benefit of the doubt. So as long as they can shit on David Miscavige, that's the only one that's fair game, according to them. Well, breaking news, y'all. The children inside of these hotels are the fair game. So by all means, tell us when Mike Rinder has told you that children inside the hotel were fair game, because he's all about telling you how he fair gamed adults. There's no literal confession, admission, or nothing on the public record where he and his executives and his proteges and everybody below him, this chain of command, top of the pyramid scheme, was having juniors, was having aiders and abettors, was having co-conspirators to do the dirty work for them. All they had to do is, you know, that kid that's supervising the metering course room, he's not doing a good job. He's not completing enough people in the course. He's not making us $100,000. So go and lock him up. That's it. That's all it took. That's all it took for me to be locked up for 2 years inside the Hacienda Gardens by Debbie Cook. So there's a lot of misinformation out there about what in the hell these hotels are. And that's what we're trying to break through, because the blackmail was real, you guys. That is the stock and trade of what gets traded inside of these hotels. It's all blackmail driven.
How can I help? How can I be useful in ending needless suffering? Do not be afraid of work that has no end.
We have to organize a social movement.
We have an opportunity to lead by example versus just talking, hot air. I think
See, guys, lead by example, not just hot air.
the more people in this fight, the more we grow. Eventually you could change. The people are the ones that can make the change.
Welcome to Change Agents, an Ironclad original presented by Montana Knife Company. Andy's unavailable to record the intros this week for the show, but I'm a producer on the show and wanted to tell you about an incredible conversation Andy recently had with best-selling author and investigative journalist Nick Bryant. Nick is the author of books including The Franklin Scandal and the upcoming book, The Truth About Watergate. He's also the director of the organization Epstein Justice, which seeks justice for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, you may have read his work in outlets including Vanity Fair, New York Magazine, Gawker, and heard interviews with Nick before. But in this conversation, he goes in areas you probably haven't heard him talk about, particularly on the topic of COINTELPRO and intelligence agencies' ties to Jeffrey Epstein and potentially covering up widespread abuse among politicians and powerful people. This week, as courts are releasing new information about individuals connected to Jeffrey Epstein, we wanted to bring you this timely conversation between investigative journalist Nick Bryant and Andy Stumpf.
I'm just curious, how you kind of found your way to this particular topic, because you were early on in the discovery or revelation of what was going on with him.
I'm a freelance writer. I live in New York City. And I was talking to a Rolling Stone editor. And he said, pitch me some stories. And I said, well, what kind of stories do you want? And I'd written about some very dark subjects in the past. And he said, pitch me dark stories. The darkest stories you can think of. And, I kind of threw my hands up in the air and I said, Nazis, Satanists. I mean,
and two good candidates.
And then there was that little glint in his eye when I said Satanists. And he goes, Satanists. So I had a simple plan. I was going to meet some Satanists and I was going to go to a black mass and write an article and get a paycheck. It was going to be, as I said, it was a simple plan. But when you're writing, most writers that I know are like this. You're always trolling for subject matter that's tangential to what you're writing about or possibly related to what you're writing about. And I came across a U.S. Customs report about a cult called the Finders. And they were headquartered in Washington, D.C. And I wrote a book called The Franklin Scandal. And I took the entire U.S. Customs report on the Finders and put it in the book because it's almost incomprehensible. But anyway, what happened was the Finders were headquartered in Washington, D.C., but they were all over. They were a cult. And there were two Finders that were busted in a park in Tallahassee, Florida, with 6 children, ages 2 to 5 or 2 to 6, I believe. And some concerned citizens called the police. The police showed up. They took one look at these kids who were ragamuffins. And they arrested the 2 Finders and put the kids in protective custody. And I do have the Tallahassee police report, and a physician examining the kids said that 2 of the kids had been sexually abused or showed signs of sexual abuse. And these 2 Finders were arraigned on a number of child abuse charges. And there was child pornography in the van. So U.S. Customs was called in. U.S. Customs generally handles child pornography investigations. And
You hear, guys? U.S. Customs usually handles child pornography investigations. Why in the literal hell was I, as a child, handling child pornography investigations inside of those hotels? Why? I'm not U.S. Customs. I don't have a literal shred of a clue what in the hell I'm being put up to do. We weren't allowed to turn anything down, you guys. We weren't allowed to say, oh, we don't want to do this anymore. And before y'all think, oh, well, maybe that was just your experience, Serge, go and check the video that woman that came out of Gold recently was put to do an interrogation on a self-admitted literal pedo. And she wasn't allowed to stand down. She wasn't allowed to go anywhere. She was an adult, mind you. We were kids stuck in those hotels. It was a lot scarier for us to say no. Especially the younger you are, the less you can say no. You guys, especially when these, adults are wearing military uniforms inside of the hotel, yelling at you, screaming at you, punishing you, sadistically berating you. We were slaves. We were slaves. No one was practicing a shred of nothing else other than convicted, indicted felons, L. Ron Hubbard's writings inside of the hotels. And right now, that's a question for you, LAPD. Why are child pornography admissions, all the OTs that used to admit to this, Claire Headley, by all means, get on the public record and admit how many times you were being told, this public has a problem on the internet. This public just told us that he's on this website, on that website, on this website, on this thing. He's doing this, he's doing that, he's doing blah, he's doing this. He's admitted to everything. We have it all video recorded. We have all transcribed. Child pornography things were laundered inside of the hotels, including but not limited to utilizing children such as myself to conduct the data mining operation. All full knowing, all adults in the know, all adults sitting behind a screen watching with me having something stuck in my ear as I'm being fed questions to, oh, well, ask him if he ever went here. Ask him if he went there. Ask him if he went to the dark web. Ask him if, I didn't even know what the dark web was, you guys, but I did know what the dark web was in the context of having to do a child pornography investigation myself. Not great. Not so great, you guys, that, oh yeah, Serge, you're the best. You're the one that really confronts a lot of evil, is what in the hell these people were telling me as they were charging money. My time, mind you, I wasn't making a shred of money for myself at 15 as I was sat in front of one of these MFers that were there to really tell me all about it. And as I had to sit there with a nice, soft, okay, tell me what you did. It's okay. You're going to be forgiven. You just want to come clean. Look at this L. Ron Hubbard reference. Let's read it here. Look what it says. L. Ron Hubbard says that as long as you tell us everything, your needle's going to float. You're going to feel great. You're going to see no repercussions whatsoever. We are all here. We're all going to listen to you. We're all going to video record it and transcribe it. And you're going to feel great. So you, Karen Bass, please, by all means, advise why, including but not limited to child pornography self-admissions are being laundered inside of these hotels. And why is the agency he just named as the people that really supposed to be doing these investigations are nowhere to be found anywhere near any of these hotels? Because that would be a very good question for us to really start understanding right about now.
Washington, D.C. police contacted the Tallahassee police and said that they'd been looking into the finders for quite some time about an unsolved homicide and also abuse of children. So the D.C. police and the U.S. Customs got a search warrant on the finders warehouse in Washington, D.C. And what they came across was some very shocking stuff, including child pornography. And there was also instructions for how the finders would infiltrate families as babysitters and get intelligence on families. So at the end of the report, the U.S. Customs agent that wrote the report was Ramon Martinez. And at the end of the report, he goes to the DC Police Department. And he's told that the DC police have disengaged, and because the finders have become a CIA internal matter, and the US Customs would ultimately be disengaged, and so would the FBI. And I looked at that document and I thought, there is something I'm missing in life. This document does not make any sense to me whatsoever. Why would the CIA come to the rescue of some very strange people in a cult that were doing allegedly extremely negative things to children? And I started digging into it and digging into it.
See, you guys, that's how an investigation is done. Why was the CIA doing that? Why was that intervention? Why are all of these disgusting things being done to kids and everyone's acting like they're just literal, like little sheep and lambs that don't know anything about anything? And why is the LAPD so pressed to protect these establishments? Because none of that is making a shred of sense.
And I found another case that was somewhat like it in Omaha, Nebraska. And I ultimately spent 7 years on that, investigating that case. And I wrote The Franklin Scandal, a story of power brokers, child abuse, and betrayal. And it was connected to the two pimps in that network. And it's almost like a carbon copy of the Epstein network. The two pimps in that network were Lawrence C. King and Craig Spence. King was out of Omaha. Spence was in Washington, D.C. And King would get kids from all over, including Boys Town, the esteemed orphanage on the outskirts of Omaha. He plundered Boys Town quite heavily, but he would get lots of kids, and they would fly them to Washington, D.C., and there would be pedophilic orgies in Craig Spence's home. And both King and Spence were pedophiles. And Epstein, that we know of, had hidden cameras in 3 of his homes, and probably in New Mexico too. I can get into that a little bit later. So Spence's house was wired for audiovisual blackmail, and Spence was a CIA asset.
Well, you guys. Who else had hidden cameras? Who else had hidden cameras everywhere as we were literally collecting the blackmail as underage kids? And I've told you guys many, many times, it wasn't just me. It was me. It was Natalie Galbiati. It was Matteo Galbiati. It was Andrea Galbiati. It was Iride Palavicini. It was Ana Luisa Rodriguez. It was hundreds of kids being implicated, being used to go and dig in, to pull strings, go pull those strings, go really find out. This is so protected. This is so legal. Don't worry about it. We have the best attorneys that represent us. So yeah, blackmail cameras, hidden cameras everywhere. Literally in every hotel converted room, 2 cameras, so they could really check the e-meter, and so they could really hear you and see what in the hell you were doing, so they could really coach you, so they could really supervise you, so they could really implicate themselves. So we would love to hear how all of you want to now claim you have so much plausible deniability. Oh, I wasn't implicated. Oh, I never knew anything. Oh, I had no shred of a clue about anything. You had too much oversight. Explain the 1 billion% oversight you had over everything, since you love to record and transcribe and read, and you were getting off on it. That was the power trip these people have, you guys. That is the literally disgusting power trip they had for themselves. So yeah, blackmail everywhere. No one is exempt from the blackmail inside of those hotels. Children and adults, the same. They're also asking children to incriminate themselves. They're also asking children if they've committed felonies. They're also asking children if they've ever raped anybody. So let's make sure that that is very, very clear, because we would love to understand how that has not been repudiated on the public record by a shred of Scientology parent or so-called executive. There's nothing on that exact point on the public record. In what world is this the year 2024? And nothing has been repudiated.
Said. And they ran this network for, Spencer King ran this network for about 10 years, 10 to 12 years. It was much bigger than Epstein's network. It produced a lot of child pornography. But it was ultimately covered up by state and federal authorities. And
oh, there you go, you guys. See? State and federal authorities. So for all of you who are asking, oh, why doesn't the FBI do anything? Why doesn't the LAPD do anything? Why doesn't Child Protective Services do anything? Why doesn't nobody do a shred of a thing? Why? Why? Are they just so happy that instead of, Ghislaine and Jeffrey fell apart, their little fun that they were having blackmailing people there did fall apart for themselves? So are these hotels and commercial buildings propped up so they can do whatever in the hell Jeffrey and Ghislaine were doing, but with the protection of, oh, no, we just want to practice religion over here. Don't look into our files. Don't look into all the blackmail that we're collecting. Just don't look at it because it couldn't be more religious. Right?
And I don't know if your viewers are familiar with how grand juries work, but a special prosecutor is chosen to present evidence and call witnesses for grand jurors. And grand jurors are just citizens that have shown up for jury duty and they've been funneled into a grand jury. Grand jury elicits, like, the gods of jurisprudence have spoken, but basically it's just citizens that have shown up for jury duty that have been funneled to a grand jury, and then a special prosecutor presents them with evidence. It's not prosecutorial. It's whatever the special prosecutor shows the grand jurors is what they're ultimately going to make their decisions on and indict, which is formally criminally accuse someone. So in Nebraska, there were 2 grand juries that said that this network did not entail any child abuse whatsoever. And I managed to acquire the sealed grand jury documentation, exhibits, and testimony. And I really, in my book, The Franklin Scandal, I bring the reader into a grand jury, which is illegal. I was not supposed to be able to, I was not supposed to have that material, and I certainly wasn't supposed to publish it. But I felt like what was covered up was just so evil that I was willing to take my chances with it.
What was covered up was so evil, I just had to. Well, you guys, what's been covered up to be done inside of these hotels, what has been normalized, what has been literally pitched as a religious experiencing minors are having for themselves in those hotels couldn't be more disgusting. Couldn't be more disgusting. The audits Scientology normalized for all their end users could not be more disgusting and indefensible, especially when done in the context of kids who literally cannot consent, who literally cannot be roped in and ensnared in a hardcore scene that these adults are all about. That's what in the hell it's called. It's called a disgusting hardcore scene from hell. It's called, these people are degenerates. Why? Not because it's my opinion, you guys. Not because I came up with a word. They don't literally give a shred of an F about a child's boundaries. You guys tell me if I'm completely wrong and that's not the word to use. By all means, I literally only went to 7th grade. And all I could find was that word. I'm like, I guess if you are literally an adult and you literally see a child and you literally pretend that that child is an adult, and then you literally proceed to act with that level of impunity in your head, with that level of no humanity in your head, as you're taking advantage, it's called they're predators. It's called they're sticking their fangs in children. It's not called, I was having a religious experience and I was a little bit confused about the pitch that L. Ron Hubbard sold me on that I totally consented to as an adult. that I totally thought was a great idea that really made me feel so good about myself, because all these other executives at the hotel think I'm so cool for being part of them. That's all it took for our parents to be implicated, you guys. They were very, very pressed to have Mike Winder's approval. They were very, very pressed to have Marty Rathbun's approval. They were very, very pressed to have David Miscavige approval. Oh, you think I'm great? Okay, great. Then I'm great. Oh, you want my child? Here you go. Oh, you need their passport? Here, take it. Take it. Save the world. See you around. Since you're just an adult, go and save the world.
So I really demonstrated that that network had been covered up by law enforcement. In Nebraska, it was primarily the FBI, but also state law enforcement participated. And
so there you go, you guys. The FBI covering up. The FBI covering up for the network. And then we wonder why the FBI is nowhere to be found. Then we wonder why the LAPD is literally doing whatever in the hell they get told to do by the people inside of these hotels. So here's a journalist that had to dig in, that had to see what in the hell these people were doing in government. If government is not reined in, if government is just allowed to do whatever in the hell they want to be doing, if Karen Bass just wants to go and yap about what, this and that, and whatever the hell type of deals she's getting for herself to advance her career, to advance her position, to have her way, then it gets done. Then nobody gives a shred of a literal F. But there you go. It's an investigative journalist that I'm sure completed more than high school that is telling us that he has actually found federal authorities being crooked and corrupt AF themselves. So let's not just keep on wondering why nothing changes and why nothing gets investigated and why all of this sham and scam continues to proliferate as kids are implicated in the exact same thing that we have already told you ad nauseum what in the hell they're doing.
that grand jury actually indicted 2 kids that would not recant their accounts of abuse. And one of the kids was Alicia Owen, and she wouldn't recant her abuse. She was 21 years old and she'd been trafficked as an adolescent. And she wouldn't recant her abuse in front of a federal grand jury. So she was ultimately looking at 200 years in prison because she wouldn't recant her abuse, and she still refused to recant her abuse. And then one of the boys who wouldn't recant his abuse, accounts of his abuse, was looking at 60 years in prison. And to sanctify that grand jury, they had to put Alicia Owen away. And the majority of the book is her trial. And I really show just how perfidious her trial was. And she was a 21-year-old girl from a working class family that had been trafficked as an adolescent. And
see, you guys, a 21-year-old from a working class family trafficked as an adolescent. Gee, that profile fits none other than who? David Miscavige. None other than who? Marty Rathbun. None other than who? Mike Winder. None other than who? Shelley Miscavige. None other than who? Angie Blankenship. None other than who? Debbie Cook. And guess what? At 21 years old and 22 years old, they were already facing consequences for themselves.
it was a real kangaroo court that convicted her, and that trial was unbelievably corrupt. But anyway, she was sentenced. She was a kid. She was sentenced between 9 and 15 years in prison for perjury, and she had to do 2 years in solitary confinement. And
For literal
I find
perjury, you guys.
that
It wasn't even like she was the trafficker herself. She was literally for perjury. Gee, I wonder if Mike Rinder or Marty Rathbun have ever been deposed and have ever perjured themselves. Because apparently that's all it takes for you to start seeing consequences that are legal in nature.
the injustices were just so seismic in that case that I found that I had to write about it. So that book was published in 2009, and I started digging into this world in 2002, and Epstein came across my radar in about 2011, and I ultimately went down to Florida in 2012 and started digging into Epstein. And that's when I acquired his Black Book. And I brought the Black Book back to New York City, and I tried to get publishers to publish it and let me write an article about it. And it took me 3 years before I could get someone to publish it and let me write articles about it. It was, and that was Gawker, which has unfortunately been sued into oblivion at this point.
Isn't that great, you guys? No one wants to publish the Black Book that exposes the child traffickers. So apparently we are not the only ones that smell the rat on the corrupt media. And unfortunately for us, Gawker is nowhere to be found because it's been sued into oblivion. But lucky for us, we do have the Tampa Bay Times. Lucky for us, we do have the LA Times. Lucky for us, we do have all the other grifters that, you know, you couldn't actually bring them anything and they don't want to publish it. As long as it implicates kids, they want nothing to do with it. They couldn't give a shred of an F what happens to American kids in American soils. Literally, the corporate press, abysmal record for advocating or giving a shred of a literal F, speaks for its damn self.
But it's interesting. There was a grand jury in Florida that found that Epstein hadn't molested a single child. And the Palm Beach Police Department, which initiated the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, had 5 victims, underage victims, that they had statements from. And then they had people that corroborated the victims. But they knew of 17 more victims. So the Florida law enforcement and the judiciary knew of 23 Epstein victims at that point. But that grand jury only called 1 Epstein victim. And that special prosecutor, Barry
Imagine
Kushner, skewered her. So that grand jury didn't find Epstein guilty of a single count of child abuse. And the corruption has just cascaded since then.
What you're describing to, I would consider myself to be a sane person, is absolutely mind-bending.
It's mind-bending, and but what's truly unfortunate is that you've got the federal government covering up child trafficking, both in the Franklin scandal and also in the Epstein scandal. The U.S. attorney,
and also in the Scientology scandal, that we literally don't know if the literal federal government is doing that cover up, you guys, but we do know the LAPD and the Clearwater Police are definitely well implicated, again, by their actions and by their lack of actions. So whatever way they look, their record speaks for itself. Actions, turns out, do speak much louder than blah, 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 gaslighting, laundering of image words, shared to continue the problem, shared so that the predators never face a shred of scrutiny, because God forbid people find out what they were really all about inside of those hotels, right?
for the Southern District of Florida was Alexander Acosta. And that's who was ostensibly supposed to prosecute Epstein. He had a list of 32 Epstein victims. I have that list. And he did not charge Jeffrey Epstein with one count of child abuse. And after he had been U.S. attorney, he was nominated to be Trump's labor secretary. And he was being vetted by the Trump administration. And they asked him, why didn't you go after Epstein? And he said, I was told that Epstein was intelligence and that it was above my pay grade and to leave it alone. So you have in the Epstein case, you have a U.S. attorney standing down from prosecuting child abuse when he has a list of 32 victims. Now, here's where it gets really mind-boggling. Constitutionally, there's only two people in the government that can tell a U.S. attorney to stand down. One is the president and one is the attorney general. That message can be delivered by a minion of the president or the attorney general, but only one of two people can tell a U.S. attorney to stand down. So that's the kind of power that was deployed to make sure that Jeffrey Epstein wasn't indicted by the feds. And Alexander Acosta has been questioned about what he had said to the Trump administration, vetting him about that Epstein was, that he'd been told that Epstein was intelligence, and he's never denied that at all.
Not great, you guys, that their kids are the ones have to pay the price for these crooked people's intelligence. So imagine that Scientology doesn't want anyone that works for the FBI or the CIA or any type of high clearance government agencies to be anywhere near their hotels. And Scientology is running the same thing that Ghislaine and Jeffrey were doing. Hidden cameras, grabbing minors. Mind you, we were not just being used for massages, including but not limited to, we were also expected to give massages to these adults coming to these hotels. But the business model couldn't be literally the exact same. Come into a hotel, pay for a minor to service you, go get your withholds off, go tell your minor, spill your guts to that minor, spill them, just tell them everything, implicate, self-incriminate, go for it. You're going to feel so much better. Now, before you all think, oh, Scientology has a whole pyramid. And even their public are part of a pyramid, because at the very, very top of the pyramid, you guys, let's really make sure this is very clear, because I think that people are running around extremely confused. Who do y'all think is at the very top of the pyramid? Does anyone have a shred of a clue who could possibly be, not from the executive, not from the administrative, from the end user side? That's what we're talking about. Who? Celebrities. Celebrities are at the very top of this pyramid. And don't think that it's just like Tom Cruise. Don't think that it's just John Travolta. Don't think that it's just that level of celebrity. They even have people like, billionaire alleged Grant Cardone at the very top of that celeb VIP. Billionaires like Trish Duggan, billionaires like Bob Duggan, billionaires like other Scientology billionaires. So they want people with moolah. They want people with money. If you don't have a lot of money, if you don't have a lot of moolah, if you don't have a lot of power, if you don't have no influence, then guess what? You're part of these people over here, because the other type of people are, in Scientology, you're either a celebrity VIP, full of money, full of ways to donate, full of ways to really want to tell them all your self-admitted felonies. So yeah, making a lot of money. And then here you just have a bunch of peons. The Scientologists don't give a shred of an F if they lose them. It's like, oh, that person, whatever. They were never going to be anything to us anyways. So that's how that pyramid scheme works. So it's all about the celebrities. The celebrities are being treated as the slave masters. The celebrities are being treated as if they were the royalty. And everyone in Scientology should be so thankful that they are there, that they want to be Scientologists. Because, I mean, as long as all of these celebrities are doing it, then it couldn't be wrong, right? Just like that's Ghislaine and Jeffrey. As long as all these people are implicated, flying to the island, witnessing what's going on in that island. What, y'all think that people go inside Celebrity Center and don't witness anything? How does that work? Do y'all think that people go to the Fort Harrison Hotel and witness nothing? How does that literally work? Because it would be really great to start understanding that part too.
Do you remember the first time you came across Epstein's name in your research when you were looking into these type of behaviors?
It was about 2011, I believe. And I'd spent 7 years investigating and writing the Franklin scandal. And I went as deep into a child trafficking network as someone can go. I mean, I got to one of the Blackmail photographers. And I got to other people that were definitely privy to the intelligence connection and the hidden cameras. And then I found a number of victims. I had that grand jury that covered up the abuse in Omaha, Nebraska, that indicted those 2 kids. They had a list of 60 victims, and I've got all the grand jury documentation. So I had a list of those 60 victims. And there were a lot more victims, but there was a state investigator that had found 60 victims. And my job was to find those victims. And unfortunately, and we see this with the Epstein case too, unfortunately, a lot of those kids came from very dysfunctional backgrounds.
Yeah.
And then they were repeatedly molested, and the carrot was drugs. And if they performed, they were given drugs. And then at a certain point, they would be expunged. And we saw this with the Epstein network too. At a certain point, they would be expunged because they would lose their youthful marketability. And then what you have is a severely dysfunctional young adult that oftentimes goes on to commit crimes. So they can.
See, you guys, after you are trafficked, after you are exposed to this unthinkable level of abuse, you end up as roadkill. You end up as damaged goods. As if I wasn't literally found shoplifting at Neiman Marcus 1 year after I left the Sea Org, you guys. 1 year. So imagine all the disgusting bad coping mechanisms that all these kids develop. Horrible drug addiction, shoplifting impulsivity, just disgusting, just disgusting. Literally kids, a childhood inside of those hotels being disgustingly abused, having no shred of decompression time, being forced to be in a fawn position, which is how they liked us. If you start to say no, if you start to say please stop, if you start to put any shred of pushback, you are immediately preyed upon and hammered until you go back to fawn. Scientology executives don't want anyone to have agency. They want everyone fawning for them. That's what gets them off. They want everyone inside the hotel. Call me sir. I'm a sir. I'm a sir. I'm very superior. I'm very senior. I really do have my fake military uniform with my shit here. And I couldn't be more senior, and I couldn't be more superior, and I couldn't be above others because I'm so important to really, clearing the entire planet. The entire planet is on my shoulders, is how in the hell these disgusting people were running around the hotel role-playing in their infantilized, disgusting uniforms.
Feed their addiction and thereby end up in prison or end up as felons or in some way compromise their own credibility. So it's almost a perfect system that you take these kids and really damage them, and then they will eventually go on to compromise their own credibility.
Isn't that great, you guys? It's nearly a perfect system. They're expecting us to compromise our credibility after being exploited and abused and destroyed. I mean, never mind that none of the Scientology kids have been given any type of fair approach to even have a shred of justice done. We have one case of federal child trafficking in Florida. Well, 3 cases, but one set of lawsuits for that. 3 kids. That's it. In the whole history of this disgusting abomination happening. So is it a lack of victims, or is it a lack of anyone with any sort of legal background wanting to do anything with these disgusting hotels? Because I know what the answer is to that question, and I'm sure y'all do too.
Well, I would imagine in your research that you came across a variety of names. What was it about Epstein that drew your attention and more scrutiny?
The cover up with the grand jury. That was a telltale sign. I've written a lot about children's issues. I started writing about children's issues in 1990. I mean, I've written about a lot of different things. I've had a freelance writing career that spanned like 30 years, but I've written a lot about children's issues. And actually, I wrote a book about I co-authored a book about lower socioeconomic children that was published in 1995. So I'm sensitive to children's issues. And then once I saw what was happening in the Franklin scandal, where these kids were getting trafficked, and then I came across other people that came to me. When you write a book like that, you become kind of like a lightning rod. And a number of people had come to me and talked about being trafficked and could I investigate. And I'm just one guy. I really, felt bad that I couldn't investigate all the allegations that came to me. But the thing that stuck out about Epstein was I felt that there were major legal aberrations that occurred in Florida. And I can remember
Major legal aberrations that occurred in Florida. The major legal aberration being that these hotel establishments have literally been enabled, allowed to operate with full impunity, to really cater to whatever in the hell adult wants to really get ensnared in those disgusting pitches that we would welcome any Scientologist to start defending. Because as much as y'all gonna want to say, we're just like the Jehovah's, you guys, we're just like, these other ones here, y'all are not like anyone else. Y'all had books that a convicted, indicted felon wrote. And given that a convicted, indicted felon, which is who you all worship, pulled things out of his literal ass and then made you all follow blindly like complete sheeple, like total idiots, what he pitched. Now all Scientologists are in a position of having no credible defense for themselves. Other than, I was scammed. I was told this was vetted by the New York Times. I thought, well, if the New York Times said this was 100 times a bestseller, then it couldn't be that the book that they claim to be the best news bestseller of the world is pitching that adults can kiss 7-year-old girls, and that all of a sudden the 7-year-old girl, if she has a problem with it, then she must have something wrong with herself. Adult in a kid body that she's not. So aberration of everything is happening in Florida, you guys. Is literally taking place right there.
going down there, and I'd spent 7 years on the Franklin scandal, and I didn't really want to investigate another network. I really didn't. But at that point, the media was just depicting Epstein as a lone pedophile. But then when I managed to acquire his black book,
See, guys, the media pitching Epstein as a lone pedo. So, who are they also pitching as a lone, deranged cult leader that does everything and everyone else is on remote control and no one has a shred of a clue and everything is his fault? And, you know, David. He's just alone. Oh my God, if we just get rid of David, then everything's going to be great inside of those hotels. That's what's being pitched by the pathetic media, who, again, you guys, now we have a pattern to prove our point. They did it with Epstein, and they're at it doing it with the hotels here too. Not great that they literally cannot change, that they literally don't give a shred of a literal F. So give it up to the corporate media, who does come up with all manner of sanitized pitches so they can grift for themselves.
there's scores of victims in the black book, as well as power brokers. And I started calling victims. And they were telling me about being flown around and also about the island. And I realized he was running a network, a very big network. And
you guys, just again, let's ask Debbie Cook. Were you flying around minors, Debbie Cook? Were you flying around Jenna Miscavige to Australia? Were you flying around, you know, minors across state lines when y'all found out that there were legal implications to someone going out to D, aka your euphemism to cover up for rape? Because that would be very great to understand how all of these Scientology executives, infantile idiots that they were, decided to really pitch to all the kids inside of the hotel, oh, you guys, no one's allowed to have sex because we couldn't be more ethical inside of these hotels. Oh, but if you do have it, then we'll just not call it that. We'll call it an out to D. And then if you do get involved in an out to D, which we really don't want you to be involved in, then, you know, we'll do an ethics handling, or we'll send you across state lines, or we'll send you to another country, depending on how egregious the liability for us would become. Right or wrong, Mike Rinder? You answer that question, since you were the head of OSA and you were in charge of the crisis management. And if you weren't in charge, then it was Kathy True, Sarah Heller, Ben Shaw, and all your other proteges, underlings, minions over there underneath, peons, that you did train very well how to crisis manage, how to, you know, disappear children who all of a sudden were no longer capable of staying around you guys. As soon as you became a legal liability for them, and my literal cousin at 16 years old was found to be having an out to D in one of these hotels. As soon as that was discovered, Debbie Cook had him removed immediately. He was shipped back to Mexico. No one even knew what in the hell happened to him. All of a sudden, he was nowhere around. And then 2 weeks later, we're like, where did he go? Well, he had been already disappeared because he had an out to D, and now he was damaged goods. The kids were the damaged goods. Imagine that Debbie Cook really went with that pitch. Oh, the kid who really couldn't, you know, get his ethics in. He's not qualified to be in my ethical group. That's how Debbie Cook and all of these people were pitching it, you guys. Well, we couldn't have been more ethical if we tried. We really were all about ethics inside of our hotels.
as disheartening as it was, and I knew that this was going to be very difficult for me, because the Franklin scandal had been very difficult for me, and people didn't want to listen to me. And I knew that Epstein was going to be difficult. But on my first trip to Florida, I acquired the Black Book, and I thought, well, you know, here is the Black Book. Publishers are going to take note of this. You know, I'm not just pitching them conjecture. I've got Epstein's Black Book that has scores of victims, as well as a lot of power brokers. And people, I live in the mecca of publishing, New York City, and no one in New York City wanted to touch it until Gawker. And it took me 3 years to get it published. But when I started to call those victims, I knew that I was dealing with another large network. And actually, the network in the Franklin scandal, I think it was a larger network than Epstein's, but it had been around for, as I said, 10 to 12 years. Whereas I think Epstein had trafficked children for about 25 years. It wasn't as big. It was big, but it wasn't as big as the Franklin network, but it was around at least twice as long as the Franklin network.
Well, guess who's bigger than Jeffrey Epstein and this network all combined, you guys? Who is bigger in terms of trafficking kids? David Miscavige and his minions run circles around Jeffrey, run circles around Ghislaine, run circles about this report. They're exponentially much bigger because what all of these networks had is kids that came from broken homes, right? So the kids just already had a broken home, already didn't really have parents, already were selected for that. When in our case, we thought we were coming from a very put together home. We thought that our families couldn't be more sane and wanting to really be ethical, which is the word that they pitched ad nauseum. Everything was ethics, ethics, ethics. We're so ethical. We're so perfect. We're so wonderful. We're so moral. We really do cleanse our ethics inside of these hotels all the time. So with the consent of our parents, we were placed in harm's way. With the full knowing of our parents, we were put to do unthinkable, disgusting things that would have never happened had our parents been, that's not appropriate for you to be doing. Hardcore L. Ron Hubbard role plays aren't something that a child can just, oh yeah, I really want to get audited. I really want to go in session. I really want to get locked up against my will. I really want to get implicated, self-admitted to felonies. And that's what these network of people were doing. So it's not the exact same way the kids were being trafficked. Like I told you, was sex an issue? Absolutely. Plenty of sex was had in those hotels. Ask Debbie Cook how many times a week. A literal week, you guys. Every week they would keep a tally. Okay, who went out to eat? Remember, every Thursday they talk about this at their staff meeting. Every Thursday. Flaps and handlings, another euphemism. Flaps means nothing. Okay, but flaps in there means anything that could shut us off, anything that could literally shut the doors of the hotel. Liabilities, legal liabilities. It was another wishy-washy word to just, it could be legal liabilities. It could be something that, you know, you didn't do right. It could be all manner of stuff. But this was all openly discussed in front of everybody because L. Ron Hubbard's proteges really did believe that as long as they implicated all of them, like Jesse Prince already told us, as long as they were all committing the criminal act, then it wasn't a criminal act. Then it was just, oh, we all do it here, so who cares? It's so normalized, glorified, but all indefensible AF. And here's, we're just going through, that was the commercials, you guys. So I have to fast forward there.
And what we see in the Franklin scandal, I was talking about those two pimps, Lawrence E. King and Craig Spence, they both came from blue collar families. And both of them were in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War. And King was in Thailand and he was given a top security clearance, and and Spence was an ABC reporter. And I'm extrapolating this, but I believe that both of them got busted molesting boys when they were in Southeast Asia. And they were turned because as soon as they came back to the United States, their careers were just on an upward trajectory. So, and we see that with Epstein. He comes from this humble origin, and then he's a teacher at Dalton, which is maybe the most prestigious high school in the United States of America, and he's not even a college graduate. So Epstein, we don't really know when Epstein was turned, but I think that the way that his career just shot up after he left Dalton is an indication that at some point he was turned. And in 1987, Les Wexner, whose name is also circled in the Black Book, who is a billionaire, he's head of L Brands, which was Victoria's Secret and Tommy Hilfiger and a number of other clothing lines. He was worth at that point about $4 billion. And in 1987, he gave Epstein the keys to his kingdom. He gave Epstein power of attorney over his entire empire. And at that point in 1987, you can see Epstein just, his star just rises and rises and rises. Why did Les Wexner, one of the richest men in the world, give Epstein the keys to his kingdom? According to Vanity Fair, Les Wexner gave Jeffrey Epstein the keys to his kingdom because he was lonely.
Oh,
That's what Vanity Fair wants us to believe.
lonely. See, you guys? Vanity Fair is the Tampa Bay Times of the Epstein disgusting stuff. Isn't that great? Oh, according to the Tampa Bay Times, David was just beating adults and they had a really hard time about that. You know, David's top lieutenants. David's literally, I will do whatever in the hell you say, David, my sir. Mr. Miscavige. So when shit does not make sense, you guys, there is a reason it doesn't make sense. It doesn't just not make sense and then we're supposed to have cognitive dissonance so that we feel comfortable about the way that we want to remember certain things. Why in the hell was Lex Wexner giving power of attorney to disgusting Jeffrey Epstein? Could it be that there was blackmail that was so egregious that all of a sudden undue influence was what in the hell they had? Could it be that blackmail was used on our parents to ensure the undue influence effect really did bite?
Okay.
He was lonely, yeah. That's what Vanity Fair says. Or maybe it was the New York Times. It was either the New York Times or Vanity Fair that said that, yeah, Les was lonely and he decided to give Jeffrey Epstein power of attorney over his empire because he was lonely.
I mean, that is an answer. I'm not sure if it's an answer that explains his behavior.
but that's the kind of bullshit that the media has been selling us about Epstein. That's why Americans are perplexed about Epstein. They know that something went on.
Yeah.
And
I mean, well, so your book, about the Black Book came out in 2015.
Yes.
And it seems like, mainstream media initially wanted nothing to do with it. He wasn't even arrested until 2019.
Well,
but
actually,
even before,
he was arrested in 2008 initially.
I was going to say, I think I have it in my notes as 2006 for sex crimes against a minor in Florida.
That's when the initial investigation started with the Palm Beach Police Department.
Yeah, my point is that it's not as if this was unknown. Somebody considers myself to be a reasonable person. I don't understand with the volume of data and the history of behavior with this individual, why this was not frontline news or headline news across the United States.
Well, it may.
Isn't that a great question, you guys? With all the information that we have on the public record, with literally TikTok being overtaken by these brave young investigators, with the LAPD running a sham detention yesterday because they got another sham phone call from their frenzy Wensies that couldn't be more scamming them if they tried. But there is no amplification of any of these voices. Why, corporate media? Why is that? Because apparently, and again, you guys, to prove the point that there is a pattern, it's not like the media did such a great job with Epstein and they really, really wanted to come to the rescue of all the minors that were implicated in this wide-ranging racketeering scheme. No. The corporate media played dumb as long as they could. Now, you guys, now they really want to go, oh, breaking news, you guys. We really have a lot of information. We really want to tell you. Really tune in to our next YouTube. Really give us some ad money because that's all they give a shred of enough about, you guys. That's literally all it is.
Into the mainstream media prolifically. Every mainstream media outlet in this country has talked about the Black Book. Everyone.
Yeah.
But none of them have really talked about the Black Book the way that the Black Book should be talked about. And only one publication has given me credit for putting the Black Book on the internet. You would think that when this stuff started to come out about Epstein and people realized what a resource the Black Book was, that my phone would be ringing off the hook, but there were no calls. Vanity Fair called me. That was the only publication that called me.
Well, it would seem as if they probably, many of those organizations likely reported on it because they felt like they had to, and maybe to the minimum amount, as opposed to feeling like they wanted to and really diving into what it could mean for the power structure that exists in the United States.
Isn't that, in a nutshell, you guys, what in the hell we have? The media doesn't want to report on the abuse, systemic, institutionalized, at an unthinkable size scale that it goes on in those hotels. The media wants to stay as glib as they can. The media loves it that way. And they loved it with Epstein, and they still loving it right now because, you know, God forbid, Tom Cruise is now implicated in this wide range conspiracy of disgusting, indefensible abuse. God forbid, little John Travolta, heartthrob, American sweetheart. Oh, isn't she so nice, you, John Travolta? The one that ensnared Lisa Marie Presley as a minor to be stuck in this disgusting dysfunction that she literally got caught up with. So thank you, corporate mainstream media, because you are all getting called out AF for the pathetic, disgusting people that you are all choosing to be. Choosing. It's a choice that the media is making, you guys. It is a choice. It's a calculated choice to play dumb at this point when so much information is already on the public record, you know, and it is actually extremely predatory because that's how they're gaslighting us. Oh no, as long as we don't talk about it, then it doesn't matter. As long as we don't decide that that's the story, then it couldn't be the story because only what the Tampa Bay Times says about Scientology is what reality was, right? The Tampa Bay Times that never had skin in the game for themselves. The Tampa Bay Times that all they had and all they've ever done is tell us how it was. Oh, okay. Gossip, 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 gossip. Tampa Bay Times is worse than Us Weekly. Literally, you guys. It's just gossip about David. More gossip, you guys. Breaking news. We got more gossip. More people that told us stuff. We're being told this. We're being told that. But they're not investigating a shred of a thing for themselves. Are you, Tampa Bay Times? Are you doing a shred of an investigation for your damn selves? Are you finding your own stories with your own facts, with your own knowledge of what in the hell the subject is? Or, you know, reading the book is just too annoying. Who wants to read L. Ron Hubbard when, you know, you can just talk to Debbie Cook and she can tell you what her experience was?
Yeah, Americans are very naive about their political system, and it's truly unfortunate. I've been looking at, I wrote another.
Americans are very naive about their political system, and it is truly unfortunate. I mean, you guys, is that not literally gold and diamonds? If we've ever even heard a truth uttered, a simple truth. We're calling out all of America. Naive, gullible, manipulatable AF. Oh, Vanity Fair really wants to pitch you a story about, oh, it must be true. Vanity Fair said it. Must be true. Tampa Bay Times said it. Must be really, really true. But none of the naive, gullible Americans ever find out that all manner of editors can be compromised through blackmail of their own. As if it's not literally the one thing that Mike Rinder has really actually come clean about. That they were all about collecting blackmail for themselves inside of that disgusting office he was running. So credit when credit is due. That is a fact, and he has literally said that. Well, now that we know that, who is blackmailing them now that they don't want to write a shred of a thing, that they have no curiosity, that they don't want to investigate anything? The young investigators standing outside in that corner of Hollywood have a lot more curiosity than the entirety of the Tampa Bay Times combined. And now, literally, the citizens of Clearwater, the citizens of Tampa that are so nauseous. And I've started to speak to some of them, you guys. They couldn't be more nauseated. They've all smelled a rat. They've all had their intuition. Something's not right. What in the hell is going on in these hotels? What is going on? Why is this all so desolate? So now they are auditing the streets. Now they are putting skin in the game. Now they are collecting their own receipts. Okay, what y'all doing? Okay. As if Aaron didn't show us, you guys, yesterday at that little briefing that they were having for themselves, who was there? And I don't know if you guys all saw it, but if y'all didn't see it, there were literal kids inside of that meeting. There was a 9-year-old girl looking 9-ish, and then there was a literal toddler in there with their parents very, very happy to be on the inside and very, very pressed that, you know, people were recording them on the outside because they don't want the scrutiny, you guys. They don't want it. They want to be told, do whatever in the hell you want and get away with it and just let us live our life. Let us abuse our kids. We want to abuse our kids. Let us do it. It's a religious experience we're having for ourselves. So in what world is that okay?
Book, I teamed up with someone who ran a gay escort service in Washington, D.C. And we wrote a book called Confessions of a D.C. Madam, The Politics of Sex, Lies, and Blackmail. And the intelligence would use his gay escorts to compromise closeted politicians. So I've been looking at this for quite some time. And Americans have a collective naivete about their political system. They do not think that their politicians are being blackmailed, which is truly unfortunate because I've come to believe that the checks and balances within our government is blackmail. Our politicians, when you get to the national level, they're either blackmailed or they were willing to make Faustian pacts.
So imagine the type of blackmail Scientology has on the pathetic politicians of Clearwater, Florida, you guys. The Florida establishment who couldn't be more kneecapped, literally on their knees. Literally like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, have all the hotels you want. Oh yeah, sure, buy all the real estate you want. Oh yeah, do whatever you want. The only one who has ever even remotely come close to standing up to them has been Mark Bunker. Other than that, all the other Clearwater politicians, we're not talking national level, we're talking level of what in the hell is in the city. As if we don't have Karen Bass doing her little podium stands and then really wanting to put a lot of distance between them and those people and really making a whole song and dance about, oh, I'm going to talk to Mike Rinder and you're going to see how much I changed. You're going to see how much ethics I'm putting in on myself. So the politicians couldn't be more blackmailed. What type of blackmail is being used on Karen Bass? What type of blackmail is being used on the crooked Florida establishment, on the crooked editors of the Tampa Bay Times, on the crooked Clearwater police chief? What type of blackmail, you guys? Because L. Ron Hubbard did make us experts at blackmail. Experts are undue influence. We were recording it. We were transcribing it. We were videotaping it. We were sharing it with the executives. Oh, look, this what just came up over here. Look, take it, check it out. Check it out for yourself. Scientology, and thanks to Mike Rinder on the record, something that he has admitted for himself, sending PIs to really go check and really see what can we incriminate him with. What could we make up? Oh, look, we have a piece of paper receipt here. Oh, he went to a strip club. Great, grab it. So the blackmail and the undue influence is the reason all these people that don't do their jobs don't do their jobs. And that is the oldest trick in the book, in the literal book, you guys. Thanks to the KGB, we have a word for it. It's called compromat. Compromat. So Scientology really, L. Ron Hubbard loved the KGB. And he brought the KGB to the United States. His unhinged KGB that was pitched as, oh yeah, we're going to just do a lot of religion in these hotels. No one's ever going to suspect anything. And yeah, grab a few minors to go and do it because, you know, as if that doesn't just add another layer of blackmail, as Jeffrey and Jelaine were very well aware. None of these Scientologists want to be called out for being child abuser and traffickers. They don't want to be called out for that. They want to be told, you couldn't have been more religious if you tried, even as you were paying money to implicate yourself in self-incriminating interrogations that are so unhinged and disgusting that good luck defending that. Scientology parents, good luck to y'all defending what in the hell you're calling a religious belief that is just an excuse for you to get blackmailed and then continue to pay to get blackmail and more blackmail.
And when I ultimately caught up with a blackmail photographer when I was researching the Franklin scandal, and I can prove that he was a blackmail photographer, I have police reports on him. I said, how does this work? Because I was still investigating and I was still trying to get my mind around it. And he said, it's like you're on a yacht and it's a beautiful yacht and it's a beautiful day. And you can have anything on this yacht that you want. But if you decide to get off the yacht, the people on the yacht are going to make sure that you drown. And our politicians are on the yacht.
And so are all the Scientologists, you guys, as if they literally don't pretend. Ask Debbie Cook. She would tell you, oh, I'm the captain of a ship that doesn't float. I'm a captain of a building that is a hotel, but it's also a church. But I'm also a military woman that, you know, uses a lot of Navy terms because we are floating in a hotel that doesn't float, that doesn't move. And all of these people that have so much blackmail on themselves, yeah, no wonder they don't want to come out and really say what in the hell they've done. Because like this guy just said, they just love their little yacht life. They're all about that little yacht life. Oh, let's just stay here. Let's just play dumb. You know, I mean, if we do get out, the people inside the yacht will make sure that we drown. So poor me. I don't want to come clean because poor me. What if I drown? And again, you guys, all these traffickers, all of these enablers, all these predators don't want to drown. They don't want to. They don't want to swim. They don't want to drown. They want to continue feeding their delusion about how they are really going to help the entirety of the planet and that their 501c scam sham from hell is protecting them from laundering literal self-admitted Class A felonies, including but not limited to, inside of these hotels, while we weren't blackmail photographers, we were blackmail video recorders. Gonna go in session. Let me really click the button. Recording in process. Have you committed any felony for which you have not been arrested? What did you think of when I asked you the question? What's that? What's that? What's that? What you're thinking about there? Something with finances? Something with the IRS? Yep, something with the IRS. Oh, so you told the IRS that you only made $250,000, but you in fact made $1 million and you put it all on an offshore account. Got it. Great. So that is a felony. That does count. So thank you so much for telling us. Thank you so much for admitting that you underreported your income for $750,000. So now let's really write an ethics program for you because this is all going to go away. Don't worry. In this hotel, we will literally get your ethics in. And here's your little program. Number one, you're going to make amends. And for that, you're going to go visit the IIS office. And you know what? You're going to just, upgrade your membership. Wink, wink. You're what? A Patreon, Meritorious, Gladiatorious, Nacotorious. Oh, okay, great. Well, you know what? You should just upgrade one of your things, and then that will be your amends. See? So, and since we do know that you have $750,000 that nobody knows about, well, why don't you just use that little money and give it to us? Just give it to us. We'll just put it on our account. Monique and all of her attorneys have figured out all manner of ways to really purport that we're going to help the world with that money, to really grab another building. They are pressed because they don't even know what in the hell to spend their money on anymore. You guys, they have so much of it. Oh, let's buy another empty, huge building where we really have not even like 3 staff members to man the whole thing. Because yes, the scourge of what the hell these people do is unsustainable AF. And they don't give a shred of an F about any other orgs anywhere in the world. I don't know how tired I get of telling you guys this. Scientology is referrals only. They only want the best. They only want the top. They only want influential influencers in their midst. If you're an influencer, then they're really going to come through for you. And they're going to be like, oh my God, look, there's a real estate deal here that you could do with this other influencer here. Isn't it great that we're all at the hotel? Yeah. You guys go and do some stuff together. Because as much as everybody says, oh my God, everyone's suffering so much at the hotel. We really need to rescue them. Stop rescuing them. There's plenty of little perks that these people are getting when they get involved in the hotel. Believe you us, there's plenty of ways that, oh, look, this one's going to help me like this. Oh, look, you have this. Oh, look, I can do that for you. Aren't we all so great? So the donors, the literal people that are paying to abuse the minors inside the hotels, are the problem. And the biggest problem is the parents that implicate their kids and that donate them to be trafficked and to be abused. Because even this man, I'm sure, has never heard of a trafficking ring operating at the size of these hotels with as many minors involved. Even Jeffrey had a hard time recruiting. Even Jelaine had a hard time recruiting, you guys. They didn't get access to thousands and thousands. These ones did. Why? Because the parents implicated and sacrificed their kids for their own disgusting, unthinkable, indefensible delusions. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to be told that. They want to be told that they were just innocent little victims who didn't know any better. But unfortunately, L. Ron Hubbard wanted his proteges to be implicated up to their necks and ears. He didn't give a shred of a F about how his proteges, idiotic and stupid as they all agreed to be, follow me and don't criticize a shred of a thing. And just like that, you'll be so powerful. I mean, imagine the stupidity of someone that buys a pitch, that you're going to become very powerful the minute you lose your critical thinking skills. Because that would be very great to understand from all Scientologists that do have your critical thinking skills compromised, because it's illegal to compromise a shred of a thing inside of those hotels. Especially L. Ron Hubbard, especially him.
And there's zero incentive for them to come out and say that they're being blackmailed.
Good morning, everybody. As you know, change agents is
Also a spy for the U.S., the MI6, and also the Mossad. And Ghislaine Maxwell was his favorite child. He had, I believe there were 8 children in that family. Now, I've been told that Robert Maxwell brought Ghislaine and Jeffrey together. And he felt that it would be a wonderful match. The media says that what happened with Robert Maxwell was he plundered the retirement accounts of the workers in the various media that he owned. And he was ultimately busted for it. And I've been told that he had tried to blackmail the Mossad into giving him the money. But he ended up taking a leap from his yacht, and that's how he died. So the media says that Maxwell was feeling despondent because of her father's death and her father's criminality, and she moved to New York City, and there she met Jeffrey Epstein, and Jeffrey Epstein wanted her social connections, and Ghislaine Maxwell wanted his money, and it was a marriage made in heaven. I do not necessarily believe the media account, but I'm not exactly what to believe about how they met either. But what happened was Maxwell set up this machine, and she recruited, there were a number of procurers, and they recruited girls. I mean, that was a huge machine that Maxwell set up that was solely designed to procure underage girls. And there were a number of procurers. The New York Times.
So there you go. See, you guys, it was a machine to procure underage children for these people. Something that Debbie Cook set up so that David could have a jolly old time playing chairman of a board, being a high school dropout. So that Marty Rathbun could play Deputy Inspector General for Ethics as a high school MF dropout. And yes, Debbie Cook and Angie Blankenship and all these women who loved, adored, and worshiped the ground these disgusting people were walking on were very pressed to impress David and Marty. Oh, look, sir, what we just did. We just recruited 5 more girls to the CMO. Aren't we so great? Don't you want to give us a day off because we just literally abducted 5 underage girls? Don't you want to reward us with Hermes scarves? Oh, yeah, you guys. The executives liked that Hermes life. They wanted to have the drip. They were literally all about the drip. Oh, get me the best. I need the best. I'm very executive. I'm very high. I'm over here. I'm so high up in my own cloud of delusion, dysfunction, and corruption. But it was a machine to feed underage kids to get stuck and ensnared inside these disgusting hotels, ensnared in contracts that we would have never signed as adults, ever. And now more kids are being ensnared. And that is actually what the young investigators standing outside those centers are actually very pressed about. Why are they ensnaring more kids? Oh, she's just 16. Why would you be so pressed to really want to grab a 16-year-old and snare her in your stuff? So just like Ghislaine set up a feeder line of underage kids so that Jeffrey and his little pals could have their little delusion that they were really, very, very special and elite and exclusive, so did Debbie Cook and so did Angie Blankenship inside of that disgusting Fort Harrison hotel, which those women were so proud to have run for decades and decades. As they sat there watching abuse, ordering kidnappings of kids' passports, locking it up, chasing kids to the airport when they really did grab their passport and, you forgot to give it back the passport. So some kids would then try to escape. And there was Debbie Cook sending people after them to come bring him right back. Oh, no. Where are you going? We already know that literally Valerie Haney escaped in the trunk of a literal car. And all of a sudden she was told to go back to her abusers. So that was literally the MO.
In addition to naming Ghislaine Maxwell, named 5 or 6 other procurers. And the amazing thing about the Maxwell trial is she was indicted on 1 count of child trafficking. Child trafficking carries a 15-year to life sentence. And she was indicted on 1 count. And the other procurers that we know about, that the New York Times wrote about, they weren't even indicted. Now, if we were really seeking justice in the Epstein case, what would happen was we would take the procurers, like the FBI or the Department of Justice dismantled the mafia. We would indict those procurers on multiple counts of child trafficking, where they'd be looking at 10 or 15 or 20 years in prison, because they certainly trafficked a lot of girls.
See, Debbie Cook, they definitely trafficked a lot of girls. Dismantle the mafia. What was used to dismantle the mafia again, you guys? I think it's called RICO. I think that's what has been used to dismantle networks of disgusting adults that have been all about exploiting kids' childhoods. Networks of adults that have been all about adulticizing kids so they could get off on whatever in the hell got them off. That power trip where they really thought, oh, I'm so special. I run a hotel. I work for a 501c, and I'm really going to save the entire world by enslaving kids. Isn't that great, you guys? That literal adults are allowed to really throw that as a defense as we speak. Oh, but I thought L. Ron Hubbard told me I was going to save the world. It couldn't be that I was trafficking and abusing a minor by locking them up against their will, because L. Ron Hubbard told me that that's how a Thetan goes free. Isn't that great, you guys? Just a little Thetan can go free by locking them up against their will.
And then they would roll over on the perps. If there was actual justice going on here, that's what would happen. But yeah, Maxwell set up this machine. And
if there was actual justice going on, that's what would have happened, you guys. They would have really gone in and taken the entirety of that matrix that it took to run that operation. So we're going back to full circle on everything. The corporate media pitches that, you know, David Miscavige is very unhinged, is very horrible, and he really is the problem. He's just acting alone, because everyone else underneath him that is a slave, a willing slave that's an adult, a willing co-conspirator, that are willing to implicate themselves just because David is going to think I'm great. And as long as David is going to think I'm great, then you know what? Let me go do it. Let me go do it. What do you want me to do? You want more kids this week? Let me figure out who I could recruit. Oh, look, yeah, there's another girl in Siberia that we really could bring over here. So figure out all the logistics and bring another girl from Siberia to really man these hotels.
and she conscripted other procurers, and they conscripted other procurers, and it was like a huge vacuum cleaner to find Jeffrey Epstein and his perverted pals, underage girls.
There you go.
I mean,
A
it's
huge
kind of
vacuum cleaner to find Epstein and his perverted pals, more underage girls, you guys. And yes, this is the story where, you know, it was all about the men doing the bad stuff and the women just doing it because if Jeffrey's gonna like me, then here's some more girls for you to abuse. Now, in Scientology, it didn't just stop at girls. It also went to boys. It didn't just stop at perverted males wanting to really have their freak on with a child inside of those hotels. It was also the women, the grown women. It was also the mothers. Imagine you're a mother. You literally bring a child to this world. And you went inside those hotels and you got told, oh, here's our best auditor for you, this 14-year-old. Isn't it great that this auditor is going to audit you? Isn't it great that this child is an adult? But, you know, just discount his body. Like his body, who cares? So when I say that Scientology is Jeffrey and Ghislaine on crack, steroids, and everything else that you can possibly throw at it, on literal fentanyl, then literally that's what in the hell we're saying. These disgusting crimes that were perpetrated, that are being perpetrated, that are being normalized at an unthinkable, disgusting scale inside of those hotels where every child is implicated, where there has been not a shred of guardrails instituted since the disgusting founder, the felon that died and was dug out of his grave by Debbie Cook, Marty Rathbun, Angie Blankenship, David Miscavige. They all wanted to, really, let's save the planet with L. Ron Hubbard, you guys. Let's really dig him out of the grave because, you know, don't we want to spend the rest of our lives getting paid $50 to traffic underage girls and boys and to sell them to the patrons that come to this hotel to really have a religious experience for themselves? It took $50 for Debbie Cook to do this job on a weekly basis. It took $50 for Marty Rathbun, Mike Rinder, Angie Blankenship, and all of these executives that did get $50, but don't get it twisted, you guys. They did get little perks over here. They had luxurious apartments. They had down comforters. They had Egyptian cotton shirts. They had slaves doing all the ironing, slaves doing all the cleaning for them. They could not be pressed. That was the drill. I'm an executive in Scientology. Service me. Make sure that I'm not inconvenienced in any way, except David did inconvenience them. And they didn't like that. They liked it when they were the slave owners, the slave masters, and nobody was inconveniencing them. So since David had a little attitude problem, they all really got pissed at David and said, you know what? I've been working here for 20 years for $50 a week, having a jolly old time, as Debbie Cook is already in the public record stating it for herself. You guys, this is not me saying that she has had no remorse. This is me stating that woman left with $100,000 paycheck in her pocket and came back for more the minute that money ran out. And this time she makes sure she was on a payment program that was permanent. Every month, okay, gonna shut the F up, but pay me. Gonna shut the F up, but pay me. And as long as you're paying me, I won't say that I was Ghislaine Maxwell on crack and steroids. I won't have to connect that shred of a dot because, I won't even go to therapy because who in the hell cares? I don't want to be anywhere near a mandated reporter. And besides, I'm not even that pressed. I'm not traumatized. I'm good. I was just abusing others. How traumatizing can that be for the abuser? You guys, the abusers feed on traumatizing others. The abusers are fed. Their stomachs, they're literally, their bellies are completely full. More kids, more abuse, more power trips, more being a predator. And then they're happy. Just don't tell them to stop being a predator, because then you will see them literally have conniption fits. If anybody gets in the way of them being predators, then they don't like it. And then they'll blame everything on David real quick. The person that they spend worshiping in the hotels all of a sudden becomes the fair game. But yet their fair game was only children inside of those hotels. But that fair game is never spoken about, or we know exactly what in the hell reason.
A gross way to think about it, but if you had to put a ratio between Jeffrey and Ghislaine, is it Ghislaine or Ghislaine? Ghislaine. What would you put the ratio as far as the power of that network, the control of the network? Was it 50-50? Was Epstein more in charge of connecting the people that she found with those that were looking for that particular type of whatever you want to call it?
Maxwell was his number one lieutenant.
Okay.
Basically.
So do you think he was largely pulling the strings as far as the direction that they were trying to go, or do you think they did it more collaboratively?
Well, Maxwell oversaw the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And Epstein provided these girls to the power brokers that he provided them to.
Okay, so little funsy onesie for all of the executives that want to blame everything on David. Once again, y'all were overseeing the machine. You, Mike Grinder, was overseeing the machine. You, Claire Headley, was overseeing the machine. You, Ann Rathman, was overseeing the machine. You, Angie Trent, was overseeing the machine. You, Annalisa Scapini, was also overseeing the machine. And you, Debbie Cook, was also overseeing the machine. So as much as you want to put distance between, I was really abused. I was really put to, wash a trash can with a toothbrush, Serge, and I really did want to leave after that, which is what Debbie Cook says was the reason she finally left. Because she was actually put in her literal place where you belong, Debbie Cook, with a toothbrush in a trash can. That's where you permanently belong, Debbie Cook, for the rest of your life. You should literally not even be given a toothbrush. Use your tongue to clean the trash cans. That's what you should be. That's what should be done with you. That's literally what should be done with you. But you know what? The minute she got what she was literally supposed to get, you guys, oh no, let me leave. Oh no, I'm really pressed. So the people that are feeding the machine are not the victims. Breaking news to y'all. The enablers aren't the victims. The enablers are the perpetrators. The enablers were predators. And now they really want to like paint themselves as little Red Riding Hoods when they're the literal bad wolves of the situation and they cannot even help themselves.
And then Maxwell took part in that too. I mean, she was also complicit. But it was Epstein that was primarily pandering these girls to the power brokers.
So he created the body, and she fulfilled the role of the skeleton to make sure that it had the legs.
Yes.
So there you go. So for all of you who are wondering who these executives were, somebody provided the body, and then they were the skeleton. The body with no skeleton is just mush. Do you see how that works, you guys? If you don't have a skeleton, the body doesn't stand up. But Angie Blankenship, Debbie Cook, Angie Trent, Angie Carino Smith, all these women that were so pressed to get David's. Tell me I'm important, David. Tell me I'm going to save the world, David. Please tell me. Give me an upstart award. Give me a car. Debbie Cook was getting cars for her birthday, you guys. Debbie Cook was getting a brand new Acura for Debbie Cook. So as much as she wants to play the victim all the time, she was an instrumental feeder. She was the backbone of David's disgusting racketeering scheme. He was running for himself in Florida with the rest of his minions who are very, very pressed to impress him, who cannot wait to report to David. Look how many more kids we just got, David. Oh, we got all of these from Mexico. We got all of these from, from this latest mission that we went and got a whole bunch of, Taiwanese people. I mean, they all come in waves, you guys. Sometimes it was a ton of Russians. Sometimes it was a ton of Hungarians. Sometimes it was a ton of Mexicans. I mean, Debbie Cook was at it. She's like, let's send the mission. Let's really brainstorm. How can we do this? What's the easiest country? Where do we have the visa situation real quick that we can like get them in here fast? Because they wanted them there fast. Thursday before 2. In 1 week, they wanted them to arrive or else.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the, probably the most recognizable thing I think the average person on the street would recognize from the Epstein story is the island. What are your thoughts on the island, the flight logs? And even I had heard recently, I might be butchering this a little bit, but didn't recently a senator block the subpoena for the flight logs to the island?
Yes. Well, the island is where a lot of that, the island was lawless. Epstein could do whatever he wanted at that island.
The island was lawless. He could do whatever he wanted to do in that island. So right about now, you guys, what is the question that's going to come out of my mouth? What other establishments are lawless? Mind you, they're not in an island. Mind you, they're literally occupying the entirety of downtown Clearwater as we speak. Lawless AF hotels, where everything went. Commercial buildings in Los Angeles occupying major spaces in all of Los Angeles. These are not your rundown motels that nobody knew who was owning it. Nobody knew who was there. The transaction happened so quick and then it disappeared and then there's no network. This was a network, an established network that was pulling in $2 million plus, including but not limited to a week. All manner of patrons wanting to donate. I can't wait to donate. I can't wait to give you this money. Cannot wait. Because again, is the blackmail for us. right, guys? It's literally the blackmail what keeps these people really, really tied, very a la, a la Wexner style. Why in the hell is a billionaire giving all this money to these people? I mean, start connecting the MF dot, for crying out loud. Literally start connecting the MF dot, as if somebody that has no shred of blackmail has that level of influence over another human. Would love to see how that really applies in the physical universe.
Was the president of that island, essentially. There was Marsha Blackburn, a Republican senator, sought the flight logs of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I've got flight logs. I've got flight logs from 1998 to 2006, and they certainly demonstrate a lot of names. But Marsha Blackburn asked for, wanted to subpoena the flight logs. But what happened there was the Democrats were going after the Supreme Court justices, especially Clarence Thomas, for his moral turpitude. And Blackburn was actually, it was kind of a quid pro quo, where if you're going to go after these conservative justices, I'm going to subpoena these flight logs. So basically what they were doing was, and ultimately the Senate Judiciary Committee, which was controlled by the Democrats, knocked down the subpoena, quashed the subpoena. But it's politicizing child abuse. I mean, she should have been asking to subpoena those flight logs because it was the right thing to do, not because the Democrats were going after a pervert like Clarence Thomas, who is very much a pervert and most likely compromised.
Isn't that great, you guys? That the Supreme Court, literally the Supreme Court, Justice Clarence Thomas, being called a pervert by an investigative journalist that knows better than to be saying that, if he has no shred of a clue what in the hell he's talking about. So Justice Clarence Thomas, who could not be any more compromised. And again, all of these politicians playing games, playing dumb. That's what we have. That is literally what we have. They'll politicize any child issue because they don't give a shred of an F about applying any laws, you guys. The only ways laws get applied is when us, the community, is sick of being sick. When we stand up and say, shut the F up already. We're sick of your BS pitches. Get the MF kids out of the hotels, 21 and under, now, LAPD, now, Mayor Karen Bass, or defend why kids are getting locked up against their will. Defend why L. Ron Hubbard, that pulled something out of his literal ass, it's all it's taking for all kids to be compromised in indefensible power dynamics. Because that's what we need to know today. And that's all we give a shred of an F about. And every single last kid locked up as we speak is blood on the LAPD's hands. It's blood on the Clearwater Police hands. It's blood on every last shred of politician purporting that they're doing a job for the community. Purporting that all the money that we're paying them to do their job, they don't give a shred of an F.
Do you believe that Epstein, I'm trying to think of the correct word to, I guess organization, Epstein's influence, does it touch equally both sides of the political aisle?
Mostly, I would say the Democrats, but the Franklin scandal, the book that I wrote about the trafficking network, it was primarily little boys that were pandered to Republicans. and Epstein was pandering little girls to Democrats. That seems, unfortunately, to be the partisan divide amongst our politicians.
So another thing with the island and a lot of the other properties was the hidden cameras.
Yes.
And obviously those cameras were there for recording, and I'm sure a multi-hour conversation could go, was it for the personal use of the people involved in those acts? Was it for blackmail? Was it for both of those things? Everything in between. Where do you think those recordings are now is the more interesting question to me.
Well, the FBI, when Epstein was arrested this last time, the FBI drilled his safe, and there were, depending upon the source, hundreds to thousands of DVDs. And some of them had names like Little Redacted plus Redacted. So there were probably there was probably a lot of compromised footage there, and probably child pornography too. So the FBI impounded everything, and it's gone into a black hole. I did a Freedom of Information Act request. I did not ask for the DVD.
It went into a black hole. All of these establishments were filled with cameras, you guys. Every single one of these establishments has cameras all over every last inch of these buildings. Cameras that they have a whole team of security, the slave masters, monitoring, make sure no one disappears, no one goes anywhere, and that they all know at all times what their peons and their minions and their slaves are up to. Furthermore, these cameras are in every single hotel, converted hotel, interrogation room. Collecting, recording, transcribing the self-admitted felonies that are being asked of these patrons. And where are all of those things? Inside of the hotels, you guys. Inside the PC folder warehouse, over 100,000 square feet of receipts that these people have kept on themselves under the literal guise that everything inside those warehouses, all the self-admitted Class A felonies inside those warehouses are very, very safe. Very, very safe. So we would love to understand how that literally works, right?
DVDs, I asked for reports on the DVDs. And as soon as Epstein killed himself, the federal government declared that the case was closed. So I felt, well, if the case is closed, I can, submit these Freedom of Information Act requests. So I submitted my Freedom of Information Act requests, and I was told that the case was ongoing.
Interesting.
So as Americans, we're going to have to press for that documentation to be revealed. We cannot let our government cover up child trafficking.
See, as Americans, we cannot let our government, our police departments, our mayors host child trafficking hotels. That cannot be. As Americans, we cannot just all sit outside the hotels and really tell the kids that are stuck in there, better luck next lifetime. Hope you don't end up with Scientology parents next lifetime. Because that's just not something that is going to do a shred of a thing for anyone stuck and ensnared in this disgusting wheel of utter dysfunction.
I mean, it's a line in the sand that as Americans, we have to make sure that the government doesn't cross. Now, would you trust an individual or a group that was trafficking children?
No.
No one would trust an individual or a group that was trafficking children. So how can we have a baseline trust of our government if it's covering up crimes as heinous as trafficking children, which it certainly is in the Epstein case?
Well, and that brings me.
Well, that's a very good question. How in the hell are we supposed to trust the LAPD. How in the hell are we supposed to trust the Clearwater PD when we know that they are in the business of covering up these hotels, covering up what goes on inside of the hotels for themselves? There's been too much of a long, lengthy, fraternizing relationship, LAPD and Clearwater PD. So by all means, advise why we should trust you. By all means, advise why we should trust you after what we saw yesterday. Someone getting falsely detained because you were told by your slave owners, the literal security guards of these hotels, a complete and utterly false allegation that y'all sent 8 patrol cars to really go check on. And meanwhile, how many patrol cars from the LAPD have ever been dispatched in the history of these hotels to help a minor or a child that was essayed? 0. Because again, you guys, the pathetic LAPD who's being used, who's literally being pissed on by these people, who's literally implicated. They've had decades of this relationship. They've had decades going inside of those hotels. So y'all cannot just tell us that, oops, never mind. We didn't know before. We really should have found out about it. That's not how it works. That's literally not how it works. And you, LAPD, that does conduct criminal investigations day in and day out, you could probably be schooling us right now on why it doesn't work like that, the law. Because that would be very great to hear from you, Commissioner, that is about to retire with all of this coagulated blood of every last minor that is stuck in those hotels. That's on you.
To some of the work that you just put out, the cleanup crew, where you talk about your conclusion, and I would love for you to explain to me how you got to this point where it was a COINTELPRO, a counterintelligence program. How did you come to this conclusion?
Well, David Boies, he is a big shot attorney. He's one of the most powerful attorneys in the world. And he represents a number of the Epstein victims. And David Boies has a very, very negative track record. He uses Black Cube. Black Cube is a company of retired Mossad mercenaries that do dirty deeds. They perform whatever dirty needs that need to be done. And David Boies, prior to representing Epstein victims, he had hired Black Cube to go after Rose McGowan, he was representing Harvey Weinstein, and he hired Black Cube to go after Rose McGowan, and Black Cube actually managed to wiggle into her life under assumed names and assumed identities. And Boies also used Black Cube against the New York Times when they were going to write an expose about that Harvey Weinstein was an inveterate rapist. And Elizabeth Holmes, who was the
Theranos,
the major grifter, he also used Black Cube to quash negative information about Elizabeth Holmes. And actually Boies was on the board. So David Boies likes to use Black Cube. He likes to destroy people. And when he was representing those victims, I had a strange feeling about it. And I just felt like something wasn't right there. So I started digging into to David Boies, and he conscripted an attorney named Stan Pottinger to help him with the litigation. Now, Stan Pottinger was an assistant U.S. Attorney General, in the 60s and 70s. And if you needed a cover up, Stan Pottinger was your man. I call Stan Pottinger the Forrest Gump of cover-ups, because wherever there's a major cover-up that's going on in the government during his time as an assistant attorney general, Stan Pottinger is there. He covered up with Kent State those 4 college students that got murdered.
And see, guys, Mike Rinder didn't invent fair game. So credit when credit is due. Is the crooked attorneys behind Mike Rinder. Is the crooked attorneys that pulled Mike Rinder's strings, that gave him the idea, why don't you do this dirty thing? David Boyce is literally here hiring people to destroy people's lives when they were literally speaking for themselves. So these tactics of fair gaming and destroying victims and survivors has been around for a while, except that all those victims that the police failed to protect are now having to be failed again as they get left at the behest of unhinged people such as OSA staff members that really do take it upon themselves to commit criminal activity and know they will get away with it. Because yes, the police is nowhere to be found and couldn't be more compromised. So fair gaming isn't exclusive to Scientology. Fair gaming is a tactic that crooked AF attorneys use to help themselves. Oh, wait a minute. If I just really go hardcore on this literal survivor of you know exactly what in the hell I mean, then all of a sudden, she'll be no longer our pest to have to even worry about. And that's what they're counting on. They're counting on us folding. They're counting on us being terrorized by disgusting infiltrators that were very aware they're trying to do that. So these tactics are as old as anything. Crooked attorneys are in every street corner, because what the attorneys don't have is a shred of an enforcement body. The ethics of the attorneys couldn't be more loose AF. Do whatever in the hell you want, be as crooked as you want, act as unhinged as you want, because, you know, the State Bar Association doesn't give a shred of an F. By the time we investigate you, we'll let you get off, because, you know, who wants to really be canceling the licenses of crooked attorneys? We need as many crooked attorneys as we can have in the streets for ourselves. That is the byproduct of the Los Angeles State Attorney Bar Association that is nowhere to be found to enforce any accountability on attorneys. And so is the Florida Bar Association that couldn't be more permissive. Oh, you want to represent a hotel that brings kids from all around the world, and you really want to call that a pitch of religion, and the founder of everything is a convicted, indicted felon? Oh, what's wrong about that? That sounds great to me. I mean, that doesn't smell like anything wrong could be happening inside of those hotels. It sounds like a very religious experience, right? Bar Association of Florida, where you can literally wipe the Constitution with you know what, because slavery is alive and well in these American shores, you guys. Slavery is alive and well in California and definitely in Florida. They can go and recruit kids from whatever in the hell country they want, and no one will be there to stop them. No one.
Stan Pottinger impaneled a grand jury to look at the Kent State murders, and the grand jury declared that that there was no conspiracy, that the soldiers fired on the college students kind of impromptu. But a recording surfaced of one of the soldiers' commanders telling them to fire at the college students. And Pottinger had that tape of these soldiers being ordered to fire on the students, and yet he did not present it to the grand jurors in that grand jury that he impaneled. And because on the tape, voices heard saying, "Get set, point, fire." COINTELPRO was something else that Stan Pottinger covered up. It was the FBI's. I'll give you a summation of COINTELPRO by the church hearings that was looking into government malfeasance in the mid-70s. And this is what the church hearings came to. COINTELPRO was spying on Americans and doing all kinds of things that were highly illegal. And this is what the church hearing had to say. The government operating primarily through secret informants, but also using other intrusive techniques such as wiretaps, microphone bugs, surreptitious mail opening, and break-ins has swept in vast amounts of information about the personal views, lives, and associations of American citizens. Groups and individuals have been harassed and disrupted because of their political views and their lifestyles. Investigations have been based on vague standards whose breadth made excessive collection inevitable. Unsavory and vicious tactics have been employed, including anonymous attempts to break up marriages, disrupt meetings, ostracize persons from their professions, and provoke target groups into rivalries that might result in deaths. So that was COINTELPRO. And Stan the Man Pottinger, the Forrest Gump of cover-ups, he was in charge of investigating COINTELPRO. And here's what he said.
So you see, you guys, OSA has competition on the outside world. And the Forrest Gump of cover-ups, you know, I think right about now, Marty Rathbun, Debbie Cook, and Mike Rinder, and Kathy True, and Sarah Heller, and Julian Schwartz, and every last person that works in those hotels day in and day out covering, might literally have more cover-ups in their own hands than this literal Forrest Gump of cover-ups. Because imagine the Forrest Gump of cover-ups that he's referring to was sent in for very specific, specialized cases. Inside of those hotels, cover-ups are happening on the daily. Indiscriminate cover-up. Indiscriminate. Doesn't matter. Oh, confess to a felony. Okay, go talk to the ethics officer. Go talk over here. Go talk over there. Incriminate yourself some more. Pay for some more services. Let's really get you going on this incrimination process. That's really going to help you circumvent all the laws, because our technology couldn't be more powerful. Taught in a 2-week course inside of a hotel, of all things. So imagine the power of the cover-ups that take place when children, including but not limited to myself, were used by Debbie Cook to cover up Class A felonies. And she had a whole stable of kids like me being implicated, being exposed, and being told that this was our job, that this is exactly how we were going to all save the world. Don't worry about it, guys. We could not be more confident of what in the hell we're doing here in these hotels. We could not be any more confident. Confident was not a trait. These narcissistic psychopaths from hell were lacking, you guys. They were never insecure about anything. They couldn't be more sure that they were really actually tapped by their literal daddy figure L. Ron Hubbard to save the whole world. Why not save the whole world, right?
About COINTELPRO to the Attorney General. The Civil Rights Division found no basis for making criminal charges against particular individuals or involving particular incidents. Although some of the acts reviewed appeared to amount to technical violations, the division concluded that without more information, prosecutive action would not be justified under its normal criteria. So he is saying that There wasn't enough information, but the church hearings gleaned 20,000 pages of FBI documents, took depositions from numerous FBI agents, and interviewed several COINTELPRO targets. So COINTELPRO was another cover-up of Stanley Bodger.
Another cover-up by another attorney. Gee, I wonder how many cover-ups Monique Yingling has under her literal disgusting belt. Because that's where we are, you guys. As we continue to expose these people, as they continue to get pressed, as they continue to act like caged animals, as they continue to be unhinged and completely irrational, because they aren't just, oh, let's self-protect, you guys. We don't want to be called out. We don't want to be found out. Well, too bad, Osa. Too literally bad for y'all. Because the kids that you enslaved, the kids that you ensnared, the kids that you took their passports off and confiscated for yourselves, the kids that you were making $100,000 a week from, couldn't be more disgusted and nauseated with y'all. All. I don't give a shred of an F. My parents were my traffickers. I'm not shedding a shred of a tear today. Been there, done that. I'm so over it. So over it. Why did L. Ron Hubbard have his way with my parents? That's between him and my parents. That's between the executives that made that little deal for themselves. That's between Debbie Cook and my parents to sort out for themselves how they were colluding, how I was tokenized so they could get whatever in the hell they were seeking for themselves. That Debbie Cook was there quickly to provide, and that my parents were super happy to wash off their hands of another kid, just like plenty of other kids ended up in the Sea Org, you guys, because these parents, oh, I need to pay for my OT5. Geez. Oh, look at this. School's gonna run me up at 60,000. Ooh, imagine what kind of OT level I could pay with 60,000. Oh, their food and their house and this, it's actually kind of costing me $80,000 to have a kid. So you know what? Debbie Cook will take him from me with passport and all. I mean, it's as if literally we weren't anymore. We were fully emancipated, you guys. Emancipated at 15, not because we wanted to be emancipated, because we were being trafficked. It's called a trafficking transaction. It's called your trafficker gained financial incentives by pawning you off. It's called a felony in the law. It's called a racketeering criminal conspiracy in the law. What in the hell is going on in those hotels? And the delusion that L. Ron Hubbard proteges have adopted for themselves are not our literal problem. Since kids do need advocates, we would know. It's our job to be the advocate we wish we would have had when we were stuck outside. Making the points, not giving a shred of an F of the pushback and the image laundering services that have been provided for every last shred of executive that has purported to really want to come clean on the record. Those executives, you guys, don't get it confused. L. Ron Hubbard did teach them how to come clean. If there was anything L. Ron Hubbard taught them, because as I told you, they're experts at the black PR and blackmail situationship. All their undue influence was all based on their ability for them to data mine incriminating information out of their subjects and use that against their subjects. That's the undue influence situation there. Are my parents under undue influence? I'm sure they are. Was Ghislaine Maxwell under undue influence? I'm sure she is. Do I give a shred of an F what type of childhood Ghislaine had that ended up doing the bidding of a disgusting man, Jeffrey Epstein? No, I don't give a shred of an F what her problem was that she ended up there. Just like I don't give a shred of an F why my parents are still ensnared and stuck inside of those hotels. I've said it a million times and I'm going to say it again. If you're 21 and up, you cannot go and tell an adult what in the hell to do. If they don't move their 2 feet, if they don't grab the lifeboat, they're going to sink you. So if you want to be sinking and drowning, go and help as many adults as you can out of that hotel and see how far you can get. But meanwhile, we, the ones that were stuck there as kids, know how little advocacy was found inside of those hotels for our well-being, for our mental health. And being exposed to hardcore role play scenes inside hotels, being video recorded with everyone in the full know, was not beneficial, was disgusting and indefensible. And if Scientology really wants to purport that that level of hardcore abuse on minors could not be any more religious, well, start typing the reasons that is and see if you can get any of you to agree with that. Because if you do agree with that minors do belong in hotels, in hardcore scene role plays where they cannot get out, where they cannot have a shred of boundaries imposed, where their comfort level is something no one ever gave a shred of an F. They told us, come up tone. Oh, you don't like it? Keep doing it. What turns it on, we'll turn it off. So any type of pushback was put right back on the child. And again, that is what in the hell is called being a degenerate. You are not literally giving an F about common sense, basic humanity. We shouldn't have to be explaining it to all these people. Oh, you really shouldn't want to do that to your own kid. If a mother wants to do that, all full knowing, after L. Ron Hubbard did really groom her to really, pitch that this was very beneficial, and that mother doesn't have it in her to say no. You guys, after speaking to that 16-year-old mother that came and spoke to me about how they were trying to recruit her, and even her with her 16 years old gullibility and naivete said, I don't know. I don't feel good about what in the hell they're doing and saying, and I don't want to be a part of this. So no mothers get a free pass, and no fathers in Scientology get a free pass. Y'all are the deadbeat parents that were so pressed to impress David and the stupid executives that you all forgot that you had your own kids to go parent, because you were also pressed to be infantile and be playing in that disgusting game of, oh, let's play a game. Let's really be a game. Let's really be infantile. So that's what this is really all about, you guys. So Indigo Montoya, what do you want Rinder to do that he hasn't done? I think we spoke about that, Indigo. We spoke about that. And you guys, it's not what I want him to do. I don't give a shred of an F what he does. I'm calling out what he hasn't done. It's up to him to do it. Why should it be the victims that literally live to tell, that literally survived, that literally have had to do all the heavy lifting, and now we really have to figure it out? What could my Rinder really do? Again, we're not here to tell an adult what to do for themselves. We are exposing the facts. Mike Rinder can take it upon himself to expose the facts. We've already said he can immunize himself. We don't give a shred of a literal F. But then start going to the FBI and start telling them about all the passports you were locking away, Mike Rinder, because, fine. That would be a start. That would be a start, actually. Start talking about that. Chemist. We're listening, Serge. Thank you, Chemist. And we stand for the kids. That's right, you guys. They do need advocates. They do need people that care that they're being abused. with full impunity, with all their parents fully implicated, with all the executives full knowing, with everyone video recording it, and being completely okay with everything goes hardcore scene playing out in these hotels and commercial buildings from literal hell, where no child should be anywhere near the radius. We've already said it a million times. You want to solve this problem real quick? Then this. Card 21 and over inside of those hotels, and stop literally selling self-admitted felons things so that they don't have to go to an attorney. Stop pretending that you're that. Stop pretending that L. Ron Hubbard is really having a good idea on how to circumvent all the law. But 21 and under cannot consent, cannot be implicated, cannot be made to do anything. Anything. So we stand for kids 100%, chemist. Thank you. Julie B, thank you for all you do. Well, thank you, Julie B. Thank you guys for all you do. Again, it's like, all of us are doing this because we're all in this together as survivors, as people that have witnessed and have been in these plights for themselves. Even if it wasn't a Scientology hotel where you were locked up, even if your passport wasn't taken away from you, even if that wasn't the case, there's plenty of predators. They all have the same handbook. They all do the same thing. I mean, even, our friend Alexa from Meet Predators, like, she wasn't in Scientology. She was in Hollywood, and she still had a crooked attorney, literally use the law to fully scam her and scheme her. So thank you so much for all of you who are paying attention, and you are the actual oxygen of this movement. I mean, we can say whatever we want ad nauseum, but nothing is ever going to change if we are not backed up by people that are as outraged as we are over these things. I mean, we've already gone 3 hours, you guys. I mean, in what world are you guys spending 3 hours here with us, listening to these painful, horrible things? I mean, this is not easy to digest content. And I did see Seorg Audit said, the algorithm is punishing us for making it, and we don't give a shred of an F. We're not here for an algorithm. We're not here to make numbers or anything like that. Yes, the message is going to expand, but you know what? All of you, as long as you are all well-educated, well-versed in what the problem is as adults, as parents, as responsible citizens that don't want the scourge of what in the hell these people are getting away with doing, that have been cradled and canoodled by the LAPD and the Clearwater Police Department and all the disgusting, corrupt corporate media that grifts and launders the image and comes to the rescue of Ghislaine Maxwell, of Jeffrey Epstein, of David Miscavige, of Debbie Cook, of Mike Rinder, of Marty Rathbun, and all the other ones that have been laundering their image through their services. That's what we don't want. Thank you, Witchy Woman. Thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate it. Chemist Serge, can you please tell us where Karen Delacarriere fits into all of this? She's a class 12 auditor and spent many years in the Sea Org and has preyed on people just getting out. Yeah, Chemist, I mean, I stand on the same point, I would say. All of the adults that implicated their kids are responsible for that for themselves. If they haven't changed, then it really is incumbent upon them to change or not change. I mean, everybody is going to be who they are as adults. I mean, I can't change Karen. I cannot change my parents. I cannot change my Rinder. I cannot change Debbie Cook. I cannot change any of them. So our job is not to change people. Our job is to understand what the facts are, understand who needs the advocacy, and then these people can decide wherever in the hell they want to go with it. You know what I mean? Like, the problem is that they haven't been forthcoming and held accountable because, they've been enabled their whole life. Everything they did inside of those hotels was fully enabled. Now, can we have compassion and empathy for the fact that they were scammed, that they did follow the words of a convicted, indicted felon, that the New York Times did say that L. Ron Hubbard was a $100 Times bestseller, yeah, we can have compassion for that and hold those two things true at once. Were my parents completely scammed out of their mind? Yes, they all are. Was Ghislaine Maxwell completely scammed out of her mind? Yes. Is everyone else in the prison system that we can go and interview? Were you scammed? Oh, okay. So you were scammed. Okay, let's open the door. Let's let him out because you were scammed. Were you scammed or brainwashed before you got here? You did? Okay, then let's open the door. Let's leave you out. And it's like, that is just like a ridiculous thing. You know what I mean, guys? Like, the facts are what needs to be exposed. We're not here to tell people what to do, what to say, how to think, or how to act. That was back in the day when we were, cult crazy asses ourselves, telling people, oh, do this, oh, do that. No, we're only responsible for what we say for ourselves from our vantage point. And we're allowed to speak from our heart, whatever heart it is. We're not here to, concoct a pitch that all of a sudden all the Scientology parents will feel so great and cradled and canoodled. It's literally not what we give an F about. They need to come up with their own amends projects. Let's just start with that. There is a way out. There is an off-ramp off of this freeway of disgusting dysfunction. But that off-ramp is something that they also have to look for, because they cannot just be spoon-fed as if they're like little babies. Okay, here you go. Okay, do this next. Okay, let's go. Like, that's just not what's going to work. It's called being an adult, and start being an adult and use your entire background and literal experience in the world, including everything you did inside of the hotel, to really purport that you knew, how to come clean, and then actually do something about it. The parents, like I said, it's like, in what world is Streets LA, someone that didn't have his own child implicated in this disgusting racketeering, the only parent in the middle of the night screaming at these people? Why are all Scientology parents so comfortable in their little homes, making their tea and sipping it and pretending that they're little victims that, really deserve a lot of compassion and cradling and canoodling? It's just simply what they want. But you know what? It's not the facts. So bye-bye. Serge, give front desk Shannon our regards. Yeah, you guys. I mean, you even heard Jessica Palmadeza. She's like, Shannon for jail 2024. Oh, but poor Shannon. She was also recruited as a minor. Yeah, but you know what? She's bringing other kids. She's implicating more kids. And it's like the wheel of dysfunction does not care. And we cannot be selectively saying this yes and this no. All of it has to be called out. All of them have to be told that what in the hell they're doing is disgusting. So when that is actually acknowledged and understood, then we'll get somewhere. Then they'll all start literally spreading like cockroaches out of the hotel, you guys. When the facts are exposed, when the facts are confronted, that's what's going to happen, just like it happened with Jeffrey and Ghislaine. Everybody wanted to go to the dinner parties, but imagine getting an invitation to a dinner party now by Ghislaine and Jeffrey. Bill Gates, we were really doing a lot of charitable work and having a lot of conversations for ourselves. And it's like, yeah, now you want to backtrack. Now you want to pedal. Now you want to say that, you really weren't all about it. Oh, thank you so much, you guys, for doing the questions on capitals, because that's really helping me today. So thank you, Joe, for pointing that out. That was very nice. Question: do you think that all the people who knew the crimes should be prosecuted for not reporting it? Sometimes the perpetrator is also the victim, unfortunately. Yeah. Well, and again, you guys, it's not what I think, right? It's not what I think. What I think is so irrelevant. I'm just a drop in the ocean, but what needs to happen is the collective needs to wake up to the facts. And then the facts need to be exposed. And then the law needs to hold accountable whoever did whatever they did, in whatever context they did it, and shut down this operation, shut down the ability for L. Ron Hubbard to ensnare more families in his disgusting scam. Because that's really what accountability looks like to me. I'm not a prosecutor. I didn't go to a law school. I have no desire to be involved with any shred of lawyer. Literally, the people that did this to us, you guys, were not even Debbie Cook. Debbie Cook would be a nobody had she not been propped up by fake lawyers telling her, oh yeah, Debbie Cook, just go live out your wildest fantasy and, we'll protect you. Don't worry about it. Nothing will ever happen to you. So even Debbie Cook can go and yell and scream at Monique Yingling for what in the hell type of bad advice and bad lawyership she's been giving. So Monique is inflating her little bank account with all of this blood money of kids that she has taken it upon herself to traffic and implicate more people in this wide-ranging criminal racketeering scheme propped up by the best lawyers in America, you guys. If you really want to know who the disgusting puppeteers are, is the attorneys that represent David, Marty, Rinder, Debbie Cook, and all of the above. As if this reporter just told us how crooked David Boyce was. As if we didn't go to Alexa's thing and saw how crooked that attorney was that put a little, legal schmiegel. Because that's what it is with these attorneys, you guys. They never can talk to the point. They're always, let's really come up with all this language to obfuscate, to make it really complicated, to make it really hard to tell one thing from the other. Martha, question, sir. Do you remember who did the expose video showing the Scientology kiosk in one of the LAPD substations? No, Martha. I mean, I remember there was a video about it. I remember there was a whole way to happiness there and the thing. And I mean, again, you guys, it's like the way to happiness is all over that hotel, the Christie's Hotel, where they are recruiting people. And that's all it took for them to say a false pitch like way to happiness. And then all of a sudden, you couldn't be trafficking kids because you're pitching way to happiness. But no, I don't remember. Sorry about that. One Love question. If all of it is documented, do you think anyone would ever try to heist the information? That would be so good. I mean, One Love, the problem with their operation is the amount of data mining and the decades of data mining is so huge that there is no way for them to erase everything, and there is no way for them to destroy and shred everything. And there is no way for someone to go and grab the information, because we're talking about gigantic, enormous warehouses. So there couldn't be more evidence to pour through. It should literally be any prosecutor's wet dream. It's in the perpetrator's own handwriting, you guys. Everything is on this date, we asked these questions, we did this thing, so everything is there. So what they don't have is plausible deniability, these executives. So that's why we can speak to the facts the way we do, because we do know that they know. So they can play dumb and go, I had no idea, David Miscavige. You knew. So you're just taking advantage that no one else knows what you know. But the kids that were there know what you know. So if you want to play dumb and say, no, I didn't know anything, we know you're just lying. You're just literally helping yourself. Mike Rinder could repent himself, telling all he did, not only washed out versions of ugly things he did, like the story of Bob Minton. Do you realize that he's always said that after they ended up being friends? Yep. I mean, exactly, you guys. It's like there's, tell us about the fair game that we don't know about, Mike Rinder. Talk about the fair game y'all were doing inside of the hotels as kids. It's literally kids that were your fair game of executives, you guys. So as much as this fair game, adults abusing other adults, well, you know what? Who gives a shred of an F? Y'all were targeting all the minors inside of the hotels. They have no idea what in the hell they did. And they're being told that they never got fair game, that they were having a jolly great experience inside of the hotel that was very religious in nature. So the literal victims of this scam, you guys, have not been told, it's not been okay for us to ever say that what in the hell happened to us was wrong. It's not been okay to do that. So we're pushing back on that stupidity because, again, you know, it's like we do find out now that we have a First Amendment right, that it is not dangerous to speak our mind and speak and ask our questions, that we are allowed to have these questions. But again, people get very insulted because we're asking questions. And you know what? Be insulted. Insult yourself as much as you want. We cannot control your level of how insulted you are. So even if you want to project that we are the ones, project away. Project away, literally. No. Yeah, it's okay to ask questions, guys. I know our eyes are open to the horrors, but some people coming in having heard the hard facts, and patience, please. 100% K, and I'm glad you really pointed that out, you know, because again, the reconciliation of the truth is going to come when everyone can ask questions. Ask questions. Was this? Was this that? What about this? What about that? Like, questions isn't offensive. Questions should not offend anybody. It's like, why would you be offended if you could ask a question? Like, just answer the question. Just give the answer that applies, you know? But the problem with these controlling the narrative by making people feel that they cannot ask a question, that they don't have the rank to ask the question, that they don't have the stature to be making those points. That's what we're pushing back on. So all questions are 100,000 million% encouraged. And, you know, even if people say, well, what about Mike Rinder this? What about Mike Rinder that? Fine, let's ask about that. Let's talk about it. Let's talk. Let's not suppress the questions. Let's talk about it and figure out what in the literal hell. Question: what exactly could have Mike Rinder told about the child trafficking and abuse in the Aftermath series? Because I don't remember any strong testimony like that. Well, I don't know what he could have said, you know, but again, it's like, why was the point of the passports being locked up of all the minors not made? I mean, just that fact alone, you guys, that fact alone. Does that implicate him in a conspiracy, in a criminal conspiracy? I mean, maybe, but that's the fact, you know? And if you choose not to say it, then what's the purpose of doing all this whistleblowing if you're going to keep the stuff you don't want people to know to yourself? Then in what world does that have a shred of integrity? Case in the house. For my observation from being there at the same time as Mike is that he was extremely privileged and people obeyed or had consequences. He knew of many SA victims in every case that could pose a threat. And those are facts, you guys. Those are literal facts. You know, it's like, are we saying that Mike Rinder is that exact same person today? I don't know. I literally barely know the guy. Literally barely know him. Barely have ever actually had a conversation with him in my whole entire life. But we do know how those hotels ran. And he was a big shot at the time. And we do know what OSA was doing, since we had our own run-ins and interactions with OSA, since we were doing the data mining of felonies that would end up all the time at OSA. Oops, send this to OSA. That's literally what we were told, you guys. Literally, like, oh, this came up. I think OSA needs to see this. Okay, let's really send them the folder. Let's really send them this. Let's really send them that. Blow drill. I was checked by Andrel Galbiati, a nice guy overall, until you are into the other side of the e-meter. Thank you, Blow Drill. And I mean, that's the thing, you guys. And I mean, I call myself out on it too. You know, it's like when we were behind that e-meter, you cannot purport that you really wanted to help somebody. You were dehumanizing others. Period. Now, were we co-opted into doing it? Yes, we were. Did we have a shred of a clue what in the hell we were doing it? No, we didn't. We were 15 years old. We were 12 years old when this was all normalized for us. Luckily, we did leave in our very early 20s out of this disgusting thing. Luckily. But You know, it's like everybody could be very nice, but then the minute you were doing these sessions, if you weren't what in the hell L. Ron Hubbard said, then your head would be sliced. And L. Ron Hubbard wanted all his auditors to be swinishly suspicious with no belief in anyone else but his e-meter. So imagine you just like, okay, have you committed a felony? Okay, I think there's still something there. So thank you, Blow Drill, for that very true statement. So we all have to, accept the facts as they are. If you're mad as hell and are fed up with taking the cover stories, hit that like button. Thank you, Blow Drill. Mad as hell. We are literally mad AF, you guys. Since we are all here and have shared trauma, let's all hold space for each other. That's right. You guys are holding space for these conversations, and that's really, really helpful. And we hope that you also feel like we're holding space for these conversations, because we're calling out systemic, institutionalized injustices. We're calling out taking our power back as survivors that we are on the flip side of all of this. And, the good thing, you guys, is that, like I told you the other day, we're getting a ton of new messages from other second generations that are wanting to get activated. And, courage is contagious. So let's encourage others to be, to have their courage, to have their power, to be seen, to be heard, to ask their questions, to make their points, because we're no longer stuck at the hotel. Hello, Audit LA. Good to see you here. I'm glad you made it. Okay, you guys, and I think that kind of concludes our questions for today. If you still have a question that I didn't get to that you want to ask, by all means, put it now. But other than that, I want to thank you all for, here's the last question. Martha, Serge, did you have to audit other kids? Was there a difference in the audits? Martha, yes, I had to audit other kids. I had to supervise other kids' auditings. And again, the tragedy of this, you guys, the most horrible thing about this is that, again, all children were adulticized. There were no common sense boundaries or differences made between adults and children. And that's what ends up in a full-blown abomination. That's why we're pressed AF. That's why we're pissed beyond belief that this is still happening to other kids that are being told that they are adults, that they are thetans, that they've been around for so many thousands of years, and aren't you so, lucky to have adults that would do that, So yeah, thank you so much for that question. And no, the problem is no one was, doing anything like that. They were just literally going with the thing, going with the hoo-ha that we're going to really do something by dehumanizing others. And that's what's being called out. We were dehumanizing others. We were exposing kids to disgusting things that should have been protected from, not exposed, protected. Question, why is Leah so attached to Rinder? She has to know who he is and what he has done. I don't know, Julie. That's a good question for her. No comment on that. I don't have an answer to that. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much again. We're at 3:33, and we're gonna end it exactly at 3:33, because that's my favorite literal number.